Jasper, did you forget to
Brandon.
bring Purvis this week?
I thought you brought him.
Where's Purvis? As
Ah,
if we didn't say in the last episode that he was going to be in London and is now 6 hours in the future right now.
he went to meet Travis Scott at the London.
I think he went to, I don't know, see the worst of humanity.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
Europe. Everything bad about the world came from Europe. Like,
Except for the bacteria that like crawls up your dick and into your eyes when you go to like Vietnam or something.
I still have,
I don't
I've,
know.
I've, I have some people in the field, like,
Valid.
wondering what are the origins of the dick parasites
There you go.
because they pronounce their O's funny, and I think,
Oh, Dick
uh,
Parasite sounds like a Sex Pistols equivalent,
oh my
like
god,
a
I
Sex
would love
Pistols
that.
cover
That
band.
would, yeah,
These
yeah.
are the things we can discuss when
Well,
Purvis isn't
yeah,
here.
when Purvis is here, we can talk about Sex Pistols. We can talk about synthesizers. We're going to talk a lot this week about synthesizers, probably.
It's like, well, yeah, because it's like Abraham Lincoln said, "My name is Giovanni Giorgio, but everybody calls me Giorgio."
Abe Lincoln, the 16th president of the United States, said that.
Oh yeah, I mean, to me, every quote is an Abe Lincoln quote. I
I
do
love
it for
that.
everything.
I think my favorite thing is like, it's like it's like the old meme where it's like it says Abe Lincoln and it was like, don't believe everything you read on the internet.
Yep.
And it's
Yeah.
like, honest Abe, he knew what was going on. Uh, so we actually had to do the news this week. So I'm valuing Purvis very much because it turns out he does more than just keep this from being a hip hop podcast with two white guys, white-ish guys.
There you go. Yeah, just
Yeah,
gotta take credit for what he's put forward here.
yeah, no. All right, are we? This week we're doing the mixtape challenge, as we're calling it. It's like it's a new thing. It's an experiment. We decided to take this as an opportunity to be a little bit loosey goosey with the format, and I think we came up with something really fucking dope. We're gonna be talking about uh, arcade culture, I guess you would call it,
Yes.
and video games and social gaming and music and how it all relates. So that's gonna be fun. But first,
Oh
I
yeah.
think we got to run through the releases because there's not a whole lot, but I think it's a pretty high quality bunch.
Let's do it.
Okay, so first up, it's the season. It's belly season. Mumble Rap 2 drops tonight.
That's exciting. I haven't
Yeah.
been listening to Belly regularly recently, but that's something that I need to go and do.
Dude, yeah, he's not an everyday kind of rapper for me, but
Yeah,
like
I feel the same way.
I love his 3-run Rockefeller mixtapes. Uh Paradise, in Zambia, and then the first Mumble Rap.
Mm.
And God, they're just so good. The teaser tracks of this, one of them was like fine, and
Mhm.
then the other one was stellar. So I'm like, I'm buckled in for this. This is gonna be good. We're gonna be reviewing it next week, so
Yep.
that'll be fun. That'll be a
Get your
fun.
get your ears out.
Get your ears out. Get your ears out, Belly. We're gonna be talking to you.
There you go.
Next one up. Are you familiar with Summer Walker?
I'm sure I would know it if I heard it, but I'm familiar with the artist.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's like an
like
R&B artist. She's really, really talented. She doesn't put out a whole lot. She's putting out Clear 2, the Soft Life EP, coming out this week.
she's featured on some stuff I like that
Yeah.
I'm like having a hard time conjuring right now. Let me
She
look
has
it
a
up real
really
quick.
stellar feature on Mr. Morale last year.
Ah, that's probably what it is.
Yeah,
That and there's something else.
yeah, she featured on SZA's album. She's everywhere. She's fantastic.
Yeah, featuring appears on. Yeah, no, it's got to be that. It's got to be SZA and Morale because not a whole lot else. Let's see. Oh well, there it is. It's just not as much. Oh hey, the Birds of Prey soundtrack. Oh, she's on the remix of Mood Swings with Pop Smoke. That's probably
Yeah, that's probably
my
another
like,
one. No.
and also Dawn FM. So good to see.
Yeah. No, she's fantastic. She
Yeah.
and she doesn't release super duper often, so this is going to be an interesting thing to see. I don't know if it's like original music, outtakes, what have you. It seems like it's part of a series,
Yeah.
so this is something that I'm going to be looking forward to.
Hmm.
And then, okay, so have you followed this collab that's in the making? Kate, K Tradata. Don't know if I'm saying that correctly. And Amine.
We've talked about it, and we've been sending,
Yeah,
on our kind of like group chat, we've been sending things about this back and forth. I have not been actively following this though.
yeah. I mean, I don't. I'm not super familiar with K Tradata, but I'm relatively familiar with Amine. You
Mhm.
know.
I feel the same way, not as much musically, but more so culturally. I mean, it comes up on my feed a lot.
Yeah, like I'm aware of who Amine is.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to him a whole lot.
Hmm.
Uh, but this, I'm wondering if we're seeing something of a duo streak going on.
Yeah,
Between
definitely.
this, scaring the hose.
Hmm.
I'm wondering, is this the year of duos? And
Daft Punk is gone. There is a void that needs to be
there's a
filled.
void. There's so many duos that could fill it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely thinking I'm going to be jumping into this one, uh, just to kind of get a vibe for it, just to kind of see like what it's going to be, how it plays out, like what the sound is like, and like do
Hmm.
these once again because I'm not a huge. I'm almost certain I've heard songs produced by uh, uh, K Tronada. I'm almost certain I have, but like I
Hmm.
just don't know what they are.
Yeah,
So
I'm not like I said, I'm not familiar, so this will be something interesting just to see like what they can come up with. Also, Atramine, when I read it, the dyslexia kicks in. It looks like the word ketamine,
it
so that's
totally
fun.
does. Yeah. It totally does look like the word ketamine because it has an I, an M, and a K in it.
Yeah,
And those are the key factors in looking like the word ketamine.
and yeah, and just the e at the end too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It definitely looks like it. I don't think I wonder if I spelled it correctly, but I think I did.
The first time Purvis, I think it was Purvis who sent something to the group chat at one point with this. I like glanced at it
I'm
at
like,
work with my brightness pretty low, and I was like, "Excuse me,
I'm like, are we doing horse drugs? Like,
are you not?"
I, listen, when the ivermectin thing was going on, it's like, wait, you're
Oh,
gonna do a horse drug that doesn't get you high?
not just a drug, a horse paste.
Apple flavored, at least.
Why?
Like,
Yeah, I don't know. Past the horse paste is not something I would expect to hear at the square dance.
yeah, no. And it doesn't even make you like lay down and hallucinate. Like,
No, then what's the point?
That's the point. That's the whole point of taking horse medicine.
If the
Like,
point of drugs is culture war, like that's real petty. Like Vision Quest over culture war.
yeah, 100%. Vision Quest over Culture War. I don't know what that means, but I want it on a T-shirt. Like,
Hey, I can make that for you. That'll be like those real abstract ones that Cuddy was wearing back in like the early 2010s.
oh
He had
yeah,
one that just said like highly endangered.
yeah. I like just shirts that have just things on them. Like maybe one that says like 326 feet away. It's like, what is away from what, sir?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Wild.
now let me ask you something. How do
Hmm.
you feel about family?
Well, I don't have any friends, so that's all I got.
I have family. So
Yeah.
this is a joyous day. This is the week
Uh,
of a new not fantastic, Fast and Furious movie. I can't believe these things. I can't believe we got to 10 of them. And like I like some of them and some of them I do not.
yeah, I feel the exact same way.
Like
Um,
I like
I'm
4, 5, 6, 7.
I'm very familiar with 1 through 3. I've watched
Yeah.
them multiple times.
Those
Four
have charm.
through, yeah, 4 through 7. I've probably only seen them once, like when they came out,
Yeah.
and I didn't care for them as much. But there's a lot of more interesting stunts going on, like later on, sure.
I think
But man,
they're just not in car culture even a little bit. They're Mission Impossible movies.
well, what's funny is
Like
they kind of started a whole car culture and then abandoned it, sort
yeah,
of,
totally.
which is insane to
Yeah,
me. But
what
like Tokyo Drift is like the
an
pinnacle
action.
of that
Yeah,
for
no, it's like a
sure.
legitimate car culture touch point, right? Like the
Except for
first
fucking Lil Bow Wow,
yeah.
but we don't talk about that.
I still think it's hilarious that this entire franchise was kicked off by a movie that I feel like is basically fuck. What's that surfing movie with Keanu Reeves? Point Break. It's just Point Break with cars.
It is,
It's
and
literally the exact same plot.
what's interesting about it is that, well, sort of, but also it's interesting. Like to me, that movie has a very strange feel. And here's a hot take: there's only there's one thing that this movie does that only one other film does, and that other movie is Full Metal Jacket. So I'm about to say there's something about Fast and Furious 1 that it shares a trait with Full Metal Jacket, and that
All
is
right,
the
hold on.
first. There you go. Drink up. The first and the second halves of the film feel completely different.
Yeah.
Like it feels like it was directed by a different person.
No.
Like once you get past the I guess it's like the raid where they raid the villains, warehouse, and they
Which of the two
confiscate all
movies?
the DVDs. The first
Oh
one. They
yeah, the
confiscate all the
Fast.
DVD players.
I didn't know if you were talking about. Oh, okay, the DVD players. I didn't know because
Yeah.
there's a similar scene, not a similar scene, but like there's a raid in uh, Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah,
Is there?
no,
Or,
it's I mean,
I don't
I
know.
wouldn't call it a raid,
I haven't seen Full Metal
but
Jacket since film school.
yeah, it's been a while. But
No, it's a dense one.
it
It's
yeah,
not a
it
fun movie to watch.
definitely there's definitely it feels like a light switch gets flipped where it's like kind of fun, like goofy car movie with stupid effects and like the floor panel falling out of a whatever the hell Paul Walker's driving in that first drag race when he uses too much boost, which like doesn't happen, to like, okay, now it's like serious and their lives on the line. And it's just like it's a very like it's a like there's a big tone shift, I feel like, and it's kind of interesting just from like that perspective. Because the second half, like by itself, is like very cool, but also like much more generic of a film, I think. And then like there's a lot of unique stuff in the first half that kind of like cements it in the culture, like car culture. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
it is interesting. But we got to the 10th one, and the soundtrack drops this week, and it has like a pretty impressive list. It's got all the rappers I don't really listen to. It's got Little Durk. It has Kodak Black. It has NBA YoungBoy, Never Broke Again. Nato
Hasn't
Rick. Key
hasn't
Glock.
Kodak Black done sorry, hasn't Kodak Black done one of these movies before
I
too?
don't know.
I
I
feel
have
like he
no.
has.
It could have been. I think they've been chasing like a big song tie-in ever since the seventh movie with that Wiz Khalifa one, the one that makes everyone sad.
See you again? Yeah.
See you again. Yeah.
There was also that one, was it for 8 with Sage of the Gemini or
Yeah.
something?
I know they did it.
Yeah.
It's just, dude, eight. I walked out of.
Yeah?
I couldn't
I
do
haven't
it.
seen it.
The second I saw Dominic Toretto has a secret son, I was like, I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm good on this one, dog. I'm fine.
There was even more so than the film itself. There was a tweet that I saw this week that went viral that I really, really enjoyed, which was like, when did you lose faith in the in the Fast and Furious series?
Yeah.
And everyone's like posting like gifs of when it was like they couldn't suspend disbelief any further. It's so funny.
It is.
There's one where it's like when my boy Dom caught that entire fucking car.
Or at the end of 7, where that's the thing about a street fight. The street wins. And he like caves in a garage, like a
Yeah.
parking garage, and it's like this is a normal human man.
Or like, yeah, it's like they made him a superhero. Or like when he catches Letty like
Oh, yeah.
midair off like the flying car.
Right.
Or
it
like
has-
when they go to space, whatever.
inevitably go to space. Dude, I can't wait for Fast and the Furious. You know it's gonna happen.
Oh my
Like-
god, don't say that. They're all gonna be like in walkers, Paul
Dude,
Walkers.
Ludacris is gonna like invent a car that's a time machine, and like Fast and
No,
Furious.
it's gonna be the they're gonna have it show up with a DeLorean back to the Furious.
Yeah. I always thought it'd be cool if they did like a play on Smokey and the Bandit. I thought that would have been fun.
Can you imagine if they did the like Duke Boys reboot crossover?
Yeah. Dude, oh my god. Just hope they put a different flag on the car.
Fucking Ben Stiller.
Oh my god. Ben Stiller.
Wait, is it Ben? No, it's not. It's Owen Wilson and who? Who's?
No, you're thinking of Starsky and Hutch, which was Ben
I am
Stiller.
thinking of Starsky and Hutch. I
Yeah,
lied. Yeah, my
yeah,
bad.
you're thinking of
Fuck.
Starsky and Hutch.
Wait,
That
so no, it's
other
Johnny Knoxville. It's Johnny Knoxville
and
and
Sean Michael Scott.
yes, that's
Yeah,
what it is. And
yeah.
that's when them old Duke boys know
I
they was
love
in a
that
heap of
movie.
trouble.
I love early 2000s comedies that have like no stakes. One of my favorite movies of all time is Dude, Where's My Car?
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
can't tell
classic.
about the everything about me, I like that movie a lot.
And
Uh,
then,
and then, and then,
and then,
and
yeah.
then, and then, and then, and then.
God,
God, so
things that
good.
would not pass a script review meeting today.
No, it would not. Actually,
Jesus
like
Christ.
me and Rachel watched Dude, Where's My Car like recently, like a month or two ago, and we were like, "This isn't that problematic. Like this
Oh,
holds up a
yeah.
lot compared to some stuff from the time." Like,
Oh, for sure. Yeah, 100%.
you know, uh,
Yeah, man.
it's not like the Boondock Saints. Like,
Yeah.
God,
No, that's I've only ever seen that once. I saw that in high school and I should rewatch it.
well, it's only cool if you watch it before you watch Pulp Fiction.
Sure.
Like once you watch it after you see Pulp Fiction, it's like this is a very cheaply done ripoff.
Yeah, I liked the part where they go upside down through the, with the rope.
Yeah.
And then also when he jumps off the building with the toilet seat lid. Or like with the toilet lid.
Yeah.
But, suspend disbelief again.
It's part of watching a movie. They're not real. So
Yeah.
you got to do what you got to do.
Comes with the territory.
Yeah. All right. So, we got a couple singles and videos dropping. So, the first one, are you familiar with No Worries?
Not really. I mean, I'm sure I've heard songs off from No Worries, but like I'm not familiar with like their body of work as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, neither am I. This is actually something new to me. Apparently, Anderson .Paak is in another group, and it's Anderson .Paak and Knowledge. They dropped a new song, Daydreaming. I listened to it. It was fantastic. This was easily one of my favorite singles that was released this year so far.
Yeah. That's good to see.
Yeah, but it's Anderson .Paak. It's almost cheating, I feel like when it comes to like raw musical, like talent, he's tippity top tier.
Hot take: Anderson .Paak is the Pharrell of people who play instruments.
Yeah,
and like he just doesn't miss. He shows up and is consistently like of the same high quality every time he gets behind a mic or in a studio.
He absolutely could have been a contender that we talked about last week for the Kanye debate.
And I feel like he was super overlooked at the halftime show too.
Oh, Anderson. Yeah, no one, because wasn't he just playing music? I don't think he was rapping.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He wasn't rapping at all, but just like the fact that he was there and he was providing the instrumentation or like put together the track that played and everything else. It's like that's super impressive, and everybody was obsessed with like the Dr. Dre Snoop comeback, obviously. But he should. There's some recognition that should be served his way.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. I'm a fan of Anderson .Paak. He is a very smart guy, and it does seem like it does. I completely forget what I was about to say. But yeah, no, it's really good track. I'm a fan of Anderson .Paak, fan of everything he does. I'm happy to hear it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And are you a fan of Sofago? Because I know you're kind of a fan of the whole Cactus Jack label, right? Or is that Purvis? I get you two confused.
So I like Cactus Jack as a label, but I'm not nearly as versed in their other artists. Like I like Don Toliver pretty well. I like who is it? I like what's her name? Who got cut off of
Rosalia?
Yeah. Wait, no, it's the girl who got cut off of franchise and they replaced her with the Future feature.
Mia? MIA?
Yeah, MIA. I think MIA is like kind of decent. She's Cactus Jack still,
no, she's
right?
not
Isn't
Cactus
she?
Jack. She's an independent British artist. Like,
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Never mind.
I think I feel bad talking about MIA because she is, currently doing a milder version of what Kanye did a couple months ago.
I did not know that either.
Oh yeah, very strong anti-vax kind of person. Very strong, like someone quotation marks is responsible for this. But I'm a fan of hers. I think she's really, really talented, and I actually think she sounded great on Travis Scott.
I thought so too. I like her verse a lot.
I thought she was the combination of the two of them was really really good. I would love a full length collab from those two. Uh,
That'd be cool. Yeah,
yeah, but he's dropping one. It's called Gay. So
of course it is.
we know what this one's about.
Yeah, that'll
Yeah,
be interesting. Yeah, I need to get more versed in the rest of the Cactus Jack like lineup.
yeah.
I like Sheck West too, but
Shaq West just feels very, kind of like one trick pony.
exactly. And it's like it's great that Travis has somebody who can shout bitch on all of his songs,
Yeah, you
but
need to have that niche filled.
yeah.
You need someone that just goes crazy with ad libs.
You've seen Look Mama I Can Fly, right?
Yeah,
The like Travis documentary where it's like
yeah,
the making of Astroworld.
yeah.
I love how he like introduces Sheck West. They show like all the concert footage of him like doing um he's like going crazy doing stuff off of Mudboy, and it's uh what's the fucking hit single called? I'm like completely drawing blanks tonight. What's his like hit?
Who? Shaq West, Mo Bamba.
Yeah. Yeah, Mobamba. He's like performing Mobamba live, but
Yeah,
then it cuts to him doing it in the studio, and it's just him in the mic. Like,
it's hilarious.
all
It's
right,
funny.
it's really good.
Ugh. But yeah, so those are like the two big singles. It seemed to be a relatively quiet week. We're gearing up for a lot of big releases coming out. I'm really hyped for Michael that comes out in a few weeks.
True.
Uh,
Hey, I was actually about to send you a link. I got early access to the like limited edition vinyl for Michael,
ooh,
but by the time I opened the link, it was one of like 100 units, and it had already sold through.
oh wow.
But it was like crazy, like smoky, clear, like multicolor vinyl.
It looks cool, but I have a religious opposition to buying vinyls before I hear them.
I feel that. I totally feel
I
that.
need to like the music, and I'm aware that puts me at a disadvantage, but I also don't care too much about collecting vinyl.
Yeah,
Uh,
true.
Maybe one day when I can afford to be an audiophile.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about probably the biggest release from last week. There was the Daft Punk 10-year RAM
Oh my God.
Infinity repeating. This is the Julian Casablancas one, right?
Yes, it is.
I
This is
heard this.
the lost demo featuring our
Now, what was
boy
the song on that was released on RAM that had Julian Casablancas?
Instant Crush.
Okay, because like this was the rub with it. Because I understand why an artist wouldn't want two songs with the same feature. I think that's a little heavy, and I do think Instant Crush is the better song.
Well, sure. I mean,
Yeah,
the thing to keep in mind is this is still a demo. This is
yeah,
not fully fleshed out. If it were fully fleshed out, I'm sure it'd be very interesting. And personally, I wouldn't mind having two, given just I think how well his style and his voice kind of matches the tone of the rest of the record. But it would need to be like a B-side one. It would have to be like on the latter half as
yeah,
opposed to anywhere near the front. Instant Crush is one of those tracks that like when it came out was not the favorite or the hit.
yeah.
But you look at the numbers now, Instant Crush has surpassed Get Lucky as like the most popular track off this album.
That's insane. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's well, to be fair, I personally think it's a much better song.
yeah.
Um, Get
I
Lucky has that like dance feel to it, but at the same time, it's pretty superficial compared to a lot of the lyrics and a lot
we're
of the
gonna
content of
we're gonna talk
Instant Crush.
we're gonna talk about Get Lucky later because it was cut from my playlist. Uh,
Yeah, okay,
I love that song. I love that song,
it's a
and,
good song, but
and
I'm saying I think that like
oh,
Instant Crush is the better one.
I don't hate
Yeah,
that take. I don't hate that take, and I definitely understand. I just feel like Get Lucky just has like the best groove on that album, and yeah, it doesn't have the substance that like you could use that you get throughout the rest of the album. Like it totally does not have that. So I
yeah,
get that take. I don't think that's wild at all. But I love Get Lucky, and like we'll talk about it because like as like I was coming up like as like 2021 when I first started like social gaming a lot, going to places like Emporium, GameWorks, Dave and Buster's, because
yep,
like that was really how I interfaced with that. And we'll get to this later. Like I was already older, and Get Lucky was like when I was turning 21, and I could go to these places. That
hmm,
song was everywhere,
yeah, I know.
and it was just, and it was one of the rare songs that was everywhere that I liked.
Yeah, I was like, I had gotten into Daft Punk probably a year before Ram came out, I remember being almost a little early to the party on Get Lucky, like when it first came out, because it became a hit like right after the album came out, but it came out as a single like 2, 3 months before that.
Yeah.
And it was just like I was like the one like how old was I at the time? Probably like 15-year-old who was like, yeah, let's go. But no, I mean super solid. The rest of the collection on here, but the thing I wanted to talk about with Infinity Repeating is that there's a video, and it's a I think a damn good video that
How'd
got
you
put out
not get
last week.
around to watching the video?
It is extremely cool. It's
Describe the conceit to me.
totally mixed media. It starts out as drawn sketches that become a walk cycle for like a person, or it starts out as like a I guess a circle that becomes an amoeba that becomes like a fish that becomes an ape that becomes a biped, then it becomes like a businessman, then a woman in the 70s, and it's all 2D, and then just after that it becomes it's like it continues this walk cycle theme, but then it shifts to 3D animation and it's like cell shaded, and it becomes like different revolutionary figures, but they've got like certain parts of their outfit are like helmets that are like Daft Punk inspired, and then it runs from that into just like so many more different forms, and it becomes more and more futuristic yet also calling back to different eras. So for example, it becomes a robotic samurai at one point,
Ooh.
and then it progresses through all these different forms until it starts becoming like a hybridization of both of their aesthetics.
Ooh.
So it becomes like this robot woman that she has like a shroud on, it falls away, it becomes like a hybrid of both of their helmets but with the mouth showing,
Yeah.
and then it spins, and as it spins it takes on the different lights and colors of all their different eras of their career. So
That's cool. That's a cool
it's like
conceit.
the original set, then it goes to like Daft Club remix where it's all lit up. Then it goes to like when they played the Grammys where it was like black and red, to Ram, to like doing the Grammys again in white and gold, and then to like the crystal album cover that we have now for Ram 10. And then it breaks away and there's like this android or robot underneath, and it's this woman still, and she starts running, and it's like the camera spins all around her as she's running, and then she like disintegrates. It's very powerful. It's super cool.
I'll have to see it. I've always thought of Daft Punk really as like multimedia artists.
Definitely.
Right,
But the
like
thing is they're so selective with the way they do it. It's really
they
interesting.
do, yeah. Like I think about what was it, like Intergalactic, or not Intergalactic? That's a good Cudi one.
Interstellar.
Interstellar, yeah. Like I think about how there's just like that entire visual component, and that's as iconic as the music. Maybe not as like maybe
I'm still looking for a high quality DVD of that
yeah,
for my collection.
yeah. I just watched it on YouTube.
Me too, but like I want to have it just like,
Yeah.
in case it ever gets taken down, just like. And then have you ever seen Electroma?
No, I have not.
Electroma is what separates the men from the boys when it comes to the Daft Punk fandom. It's a full length, full like live action film that they made. It's wild.
Send a link. Send a link to info.
It's insane. I've seen it once. I saw like a really bad
Like
like
cut of it.
high seas version of it
Oh yeah.
to stay streaming friendly. Um Super powerful, very slow. There's no dialogue. It's entirely like basically like a silent film. And I'll just give you the
Is there
premise real
music?
quick. It's like there's some music, yeah. It's not any of their actual like tracks off of any of their projects. It's like instrumental like backing and stuff. Basically, they're the two of them are driving a car through the desert. They arrive in a small town. They go to this laboratory in a small town. They're both like full in the robot gear, and the robots want to be people. So these lab workers like basically put fake skin and stuff over the tops of their helmets to give them these like horrible disfigured heads, and they go out in the town. But the rest of the town is robot heads, just
Yeah.
like theirs. And so people start looking at them funny and like threatening them and whatever. But then their like robot heads start to melt, and they can't maintain the facade that they're human. They want to be human, but they can't be. And then they are distraught and like go out walking in the desert and just walk and walk and walk. And then they eventually like commit robot suicide. One of them gets his fuse pulled out of his back and he explodes, and the other one like lights himself on fire or something. And so it's very much like it feels like very film schooly in a way, but it's super cool. It's like a very interesting visual project. And they actually, you know what? They actually used footage from it to announce their breakup.
Oh, really?
So that video where it's like them like walking in the desert, what they put out, and then at the end it's like it plays the recap from Touch, like the choir from Touch. That video footage that went with it is specifically, or the first part of it at least, is from Electroma.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a wild film. I'll send
Well,
you some links.
well, we're not done talking about Daft Punk today.
No, God,
Realistically.
just I've
So,
been on my Daft Punk shit. I bought some Daft Punk records today. Actually, I filled in the gaps in the collection.
we'll send help. Uh,
Please.
yeah. All right. So, moving on, we're getting into the news. We got some pretty big things. Uh, so, seeing as we're taking a little detour from strictly hip hop this week, the Riot Fest lineup was announced. Riot Fest is my festival du jour. I go every year. I already got my 3-day pass this year. Uh, I think the lineup looks insane. I think Friday is one of the I think is the headliners are Foo Fighters and Turnstile, which I
Yeah.
think is like an incredible 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
On Saturday, it's the Postal Service, Death Cab for Cutie, and Queens of the Stone Age. I like Queens of the Stone Age. And then Sunday, it's The Cure and Mars Volta. And that's
Yeah. That's gonna hit. I
Yeah.
have some friends who are really excited about the Postal Service, who
Yeah.
I'm not super familiar with, but I've seen there's like a lot of hype there, so
Yeah.
it's cool.
And like there's plenty of other artists. There's 100 Gex is going to be there, which I think is fun.
Mhm.
Because I like their new album a little bit more. I did not like their first one at
Yeah.
all. But I like their new one a little bit more. AFI, which was an emo classic from back in the day.
Dude, ICP's gonna be there.
ICP. I think the shocking holy shit this group's going to be there is Death Grips.
Yeah, that's a big ask. That's crazy.
That's a big get, and that's a weird festival. I mean, not really, but like a little bit. And 070 Shake is going to be there.
I'm excited. I was just gonna say I'm excited about that. That's cool.
I think that's exactly like I've always wanted Riot Fest to bring more of a hip hop scene to Riot Fest.
Yeah.
And I think 070 Shake is exactly the kind of artist. And I'm also super excited for Parliament's Funkadelic, featuring George
Yeah.
Clinton, Silverstein. This is a really, really solid festival lineup. And I know one of the things I've told Purvis is this year I'm going to find a rock show for him to go to. I'm going to take him to his first rock concert.
hmm
And I'm thinking I'm going to tell him to get a pass for Friday.
I have a request.
What's up?
I'm not going to go to this most likely because I've been spending a lot of money on this. And wait, what are the
Haven't-
dates for this anyway?
Haven't we all?
September 15th, 16th, 17th. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing then, so I'm
Nobody
not
does.
like putting anything in advance. But my request for you, please go see Frank Turner and the Sleeping Souls. He's on the list. I only just realized he is like one of my favorite just like random artists who I happen to discover off of like one or two songs. I always listen to him on Spotify, and then I got to see him as the opener for Jason Isbell when I went to see him. Had no idea he was going to be the opener, but it was like a concert that was put together for me because it was like random shit I picked up on Spotify, and then like the only singer-songwriter country style artist I've ever liked
Really?
in like one spot. But Frank Turner and Sleeping Souls, super solid, like British
Ooh.
act, very
Okay.
good. I
Yeah.
do recommend.
Yeah, no, I'll be there.
Their song "The Next Storm" hits. That's like one of my favorites.
I mean, depending on who they play up against, I'm not going to miss Death Grips for them, but
I don't think they're gonna play at the same time, to be
Yeah,
honest. But yeah,
almost
I got you.
certainly. But yeah, no, absolutely, I will keep that in mind. But yeah, Riot Fest is just once again, it's the fest I go to every year, come hell or high water.
Yeah,
And it's not that bad when you split the cost with one person.
definitely.
And also Bowling for Soup. Bowling for Soup.
That's a great name.
That's so good.
I love that name.
I just want to know, and they've answered this question, and honestly, I don't want an answer. I want to ponder this forever. Are they bowling to receive soup, or are they bowling on behalf of soup?
We don't know.
Truly, the
may
highest
never know.
philosophical task of our time will be answering that question.
Yeah, I also really like how on the poster, because I have it pulled up, I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
I really like how Finch and Silverstein are next to each other. It sounds like Shel Silverstein's like brother or something. Finch Silverstein.
Yeah, no, I
That's fun.
yeah, this is best time of the year for me. So Riot Fest announcement day, have to talk about it. We'll be talking about it every year on this podcast.
Yeah,
Getting
sick.
back to hip hop, uh, 2 weeks from now we're getting a Metro Boomin project. Technically, uh, Metro Boomin is dropping on the same day as the release of the movie. Metro Boomin presents Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse or Enter Across the Spider-Verse. His score that he's making uh, for the movie. And look, I think this is the move everyone wanted Metro Boomin to make. Uh, I'm very excited. I'm so excited for this movie. I'm a Spider-Man simp, and the first Spider-Verse movie is probably my favorite Spider-Man movie.
That is a hot take, but it's also a valid one.
Yeah, no. Look, there are Spider-Man 2 comes up there.
Yeah,
Uh, I think the fact that No Way Home earns that level of fan service is an accomplishment because I don't think I think it feels very earned in that movie.
it does. It's very ambitious, but
Yeah,
it does it in a way that's like
yeah,
it wraps it up nicely.
it definitely plays into the character. Like it's not like, oh,
For
they just
sure.
got these guys. They actually like made a movie where like that's gonna be
Yeah.
important. And but all that being said, Into the Spider Verse might still be my favorite one, and this sequel's looking great. He's actually
Yeah.
in the movie. That's awesome. I'm so hyped for this. I'm hoping this is the next score I listen to on repeat because I love movie scores in the context of the movie, but I'm not the person who listens to them super often like on their own. Usually
Yeah.
only like a curated playlist of it that I put on when I'm reading, but really that's just like the Game of Thrones score and Lord of the Rings.
I definitely go more score, I think, than a lot of people.
A lot of
I
people
listen to
do.
like
Like my production partner from college, Uwer, he listens to scores more than any other kind of music.
if I'm feeling whimsical, I'll put on like the what is it? Grand Budapest Hotel
Yeah,
and just like be in a Wes Anderson movie. If I'm at the gym and I want to feel like I can lift 10 times my weight, I put on the God of War soundtrack, stuff like
yeah,
that. And then obviously Halo is always on repeat for me, like
yeah.
always on repeat. And then like some classic games from when I was a kid, like certain Pokemon games, Crisis 2, Modern Warfare, like stuff like that, I'll put on just like vibe out to sometimes.
See, like the thing, and this is heresy to some people, but the thing about me, like my whole life, like I would always play video games on mute with the subtitles on, and then like listen to music. Uh,
I don't think that's that much heresy. It depends on the games, but
it
like a lot
depends
of
on the
times,
game. Like no one
like
cares that I do it on Call of Duty, but
yeah,
like,
I grew up playing like Game Boy Advance and then like Nintendo DS.
oh
So
yeah,
like a lot of times you just didn't have sound, period.
oh
Like I
yeah,
knew the Pokemon games always had great sound and I knew all the songs like just from like on and off.
yeah.
But like a lot of the time I wasn't sitting there with like the volume up on my DS because that shit also took like battery life, you
And
know?
it's
So
annoying. It's annoying to other people.
sure, yeah. Not
Yeah,
that when I was 12 I gave a shit about that, but
that's
yeah.
fair. Yeah, I did because
Empathy
my dad.
empathy is not developed yet at
It was
12.
mine was more like less like empathy and more like I know my dad will throw something at me, and
Oh,
it's like
valid. Yeah.
yeah. So either way, I'm very excited about this Metro Boomin score. Very cool.
Yeah.
Uh, are you familiar with Slow Thigh at all?
Yes, I am. But before we get into that, what do you think is going to be more in rotation, or you're going to appreciate more as a project? Metro Boomin presents Spider-Man, or the Kendrick Lamar Black Panther project?
That's I'm gonna have to hear him first, but
Yeah, but
you
just
know,
like if you had to like take a
my thing
guess, like
I would say because like I never listened to like Black Panther Project on its own like throughout a lot, but
yeah,
like there were some songs from it like "Pray for Me" and "All the Stars" and like the one with Future. Uh,
yeah,
like I just listened to a lot like those songs, so it's hard to say. If this really hits, if it's as good as the score was to Into the Spider Verse, probably this.
yeah. I agree because for me, I did go ahead and listen to the Black Panther one just like when it came out.
Yeah.
it's extremely long-winded, and
Well,
I
the
think
thing
it's
is that like,
actually
it, I always wonder like how much of a service even releasing these things are because like they're
sure.
not meant to work as albums, right? Like,
Well, I mean, some artists try, but
yeah,
I
but
feel
the
like I feel like it is kind of the equivalent of like when we used to get like a movie video game tie-in. It's
yeah,
like that now, but just music
yeah.
is like the thing.
And the thing is, it's rare, you know. Like this is not the default. Like this
Yeah.
isn't the first time it's happened, obviously, but this is not the default, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, no, I'm thinking probably this because like the ability to listen to it passively will probably put it above Black
Yeah.
Panther.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Are you familiar with Slow Thigh?
I am. I've seen there's been a lot of controversy surrounding the man for a
He
long
got.
time.
I just put this in there because
Interesting.
it felt big, but I don't want to talk about it too much because it's gross.
Yeah.
But he got charged with some pretty heinous sex crimes, and it
Oh,
sucks because he's really talented and cool, and I like him a lot. Uh, but yeah, no,
wild.
never, never a fun time, right? And the other thing is that Slow Thigh is definitely an artist that like I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's always been a little questionable.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's always like said and done questionable shit. But I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt because like, you know, uh he gets called out a lot in British newspapers. He's also super critical of Britain. So I'm always like, is this, him being defamed? And then it turned out, no, not at all. He is just this kind of a shitty of a person, it turns out. So
Yeah.
this was a mild heartbreak for me. Very mild
Yeah.
because, Slow Thigh is not a top tier artist for me, but he is. But here we
Here
are.
is Slow Thigh potentially if he steps into like the villain arc, not that he wasn't already there in some ways, is he just British X?
It's kind of British X, yeah. The only thing is
Yeah.
that X didn't put
I
out
feel
a
the same way.
project 1/10 as good as There's Nothing Great About Britain.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah, like
I happen to like Question Mark. I like a lot of songs off Question Mark,
I
but yeah,
know.
I get you.
My thing is that like it was just too many. I bounced off X in too many different ways,
Yeah, I
and
understand.
then he died, and it's like I feel weird like reevaluating him creatively, posthumously when I kind of fucking hated the guy. Uh,
I mean, it's one of those things though, right? Where it's like when the person is alive and continues to have like an active negative, I guess, force or like negative outcome on humanity in some way, like yeah, there's a feeling there. But if that person is gone and they can't like hurt anybody anymore and you're just appreciating their art for it being their art, I feel like there's a difference there where it's like you can kind of step back and just look at the art without the clouding or the shadowing of the person's contemporary I guess actions. And I feel that like eventually when Kanye passes, it's going to be exactly the same way, where it's like his art's going to stand for what it is, and Kanye the man is going to become further detached from what is like pop culture.
well, I definitely agree with that second part a lot. I think specifically with Kanye, like I've kind of actually been a little shocked at like because I've a lot of the content I consume is like very overtly political and very overtly left wing,
Definitely.
and some of it crosses over into hip hop content. And like there
Yeah.
was this one, he's a guy I recommend all the time, FT Singafire. He was very,
Hmm.
very critical of Kanye long before what happened in 2022.
Yeah.
And then he's basically like, we got to cut this guy completely out, like, because of this. But, like, he reacted to Rolling Stone's top 50 rappers of all time.
Hmm.
And, like, Kanye was number one. And, like, he didn't stutter. I think Kanye was number one. No, he was number two.
I was gonna say it wasn't number one. I remember that list.
Yeah, he was number two. He was behind Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
Uh, and he's like, yeah, Kanye number two is okay. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, wow. It's like, this guy, it hasn't even been a year. And, like, political actors are like starting to reevaluate his music, which I think once again I think is fine. I think it's interesting how quickly it happened. Uh
I agree. I mean,
And
X passed away in what, 2018?
yeah, but my thing, one, I think some of the things X did are going to have ripple effects for years. So I think just because he's no longer causing new pain does not mean he has not caused irrevocable damage that is still being felt today. And the other thing is, once again, I bounced off him in many ways. I also found the music like very uninteresting, shallow, and kind of pedantic and very immature at the time. Right? Like, and
Yeah,
it's I'm not
yeah,
gonna go back and like give it this new reevaluation when I hit both of those things. I feel very similarly to it as I do like about Harry Potter, where it's like I fucking hate Harry Potter. If J.K. Rowling was a good person, I would probably still hate Harry Potter. Like,
yeah. I feel that way. I agree with you about the earlier projects. I think that just in terms of like how ambitious it is, I think like Question Mark is more interesting in a lot of ways. Did you listen to I don't even speak Spanish, LOL, when I recommended it?
no, I did not listen to it yet.
Okay, I'm super curious what your take is going to be because it's just like such an interesting, like fun song, and it's
Yeah,
very different like from the rest of everything else on that project. Like you listen to Floor 555, which is just like him screaming his head off.
yeah,
It's like Nirvana turned like I
yeah.
don't know,
I mean, like the
like
only the only X song I ever liked a little bit, and it was because of the ski mask feature later on, was R.I.P. Roach,
okay, yeah,
which is kind of my vibe a little bit. But even that was like, I don't know, like that was like very much like my vibe, and it's like it's okay, like
I like Sad because of the sample it uses, but
yeah.
yeah,
All right,
creative,
so
but yeah,
speaking of sad things,
yeah,
I think we had an artist get really screwed over, and his so apparently Kid Cudi, the thing he's been teasing, is a album with DJ Drama. Is it an album or a mixtape?
I think it's an album
That's what I had heard. I just know DJ Drama usually does mixtapes, but
unless it's Tyler apparently.
I guess unless it's Tyler, yeah,
And Pusha T apparently is on the way as well. Like
yeah.
he's been teasing, but
I thought the
we'll
Pusha
see.
T one he was teasing a mixtape. I thought he had a mixtape with DJ Drama and then an album coming.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe
That's
that's
what
the case.
I thought he said that there were two things coming, and one of them was a DJ Drama mixtape.
That'd be
Uh,
wild.
but then he also was on 10. He also produced 10, and 10 was an album.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, no, this is really unfortunate, dude. I do not like leak culture. I think it's inevitable when you have something that's like hyped and anticipated, and it's I don't even want to use this phrase because this isn't what it's doing, but like when it's kept behind a gate,
Yeah.
people are always going to try and break down that gate. But the
For
thing is,
sure.
that's fucked up and wrong, and I hate it.
Yeah, and well, even from a selfish perspective, like in a lot of ways, leaks make it harder for people to consume the music that they want to consume because artists get protective and defensive, and then they start to kind of tighten their circle a little bit, maybe produce more, like create new songs, new material more selectively. Look at Cardi, like look, everything that's happened with
Yeah,
him
no,
and all the leaks.
I was about to call bullshit, but then you say that, and I'm like, oh, that's
And
a
then
good
also
point. Yeah,
and then there's a lot of stuff that artists will just like never put out if it gets leaked, period, right? Like
yeah.
and I think the earliest example that I can think of is Green Day. Do you know the story of the album that came before American Idiot that never was?
No, I don't.
Green Day recorded an entire album that was effectively stolen, not leaked, but the recording hardware on which it was stored at the time, and this was like very early 2000s. So
Yeah,
like backups and proper digital
yeah, because
processes were not being
waiting or
followed.
warning or whatever that one before American Idiot, that was in the late '90s,
Exactly.
and then
So
the American
in
Idiot
like
was in
99,
2003. Yeah,
yeah, between like 99 and 2003 they were like working on other stuff and there was going to be a new album and it just got stolen. Like the hardware it was on disappeared. They still don't know what happened to it to this day. The project that they went on to record after that to replace it was American Idiot.
which I think is insane because I think American Idiot is one of the biggest upticks in quality from like one album to
Exactly.
the other
Exactly.
I've ever seen. Like,
But think about it. It's been over 20 years at this point, and we still have never heard or seen anything about this missing Green Day album.
I don't.
I want answers.
I have a question
I
for
want to
you.
hear that fucking thing.
If you want answers, I think I can see through this pretty quickly. Do you think maybe this is smokescreen?
No, I mean
Do you think
they've discussed it. I would look it up
sure,
if I
but
were you.
like I look, I my conspiracy mind is just going like
I feel you. Yeah,
because
and I
like
thought the same
the
thing.
only reason why you would steal something like that would be to sell it, right?
Let me see. I don't
Like
know.
I guess if someone could convince me that there was a reason to steal
Oh, you know what? No, there's more information on it now.
what?
Apparently, here it is. There was an unreleased studio album called Cigarettes and Valentines. Would have been the follow-up to Warning. Album was nearly finished when the master tapes were stolen from the band's studio. Instead of re-recording, the band decided to start from scratch, leading to the creation of American Idiot in 2004. In an interview with Enemy, I don't know who the fuck, what publisher that is.
Yeah.
On November 18th, 2016, Armstrong and Dirnt stated that the master tapes are now being used for new songs. So I guess they did get them back, but it wasn't like made public, like popular knowledge. So yeah, apparently Cigarettes and Valentines, the hit song off the album, like the lead single, was played for the first time live in 2010. So like they've like teased content from it, but always wanted to go back to it, I guess, is the thing. And so like they've had these songs for years now and just have not put them out. But we would have had a whole other Green Day album if it weren't for this.
Insane. Absolutely
Yeah.
insane. And like it just sucks, man. Like it's a shitty thing to do to another person. I also
Hmm.
think like you know, I think like we view artists through a very transactional lens,
Very
and
much.
I think this is this is like the result of that. It's just like you don't see this as a human being. God forbid someone looked at our podcast before it was edited. Do you have any idea how many slurs are in here? No, I'm kidding.
Oof.
Takes us 3 hours every week to de-slur the podcast. Like,
Yeah.
we had to
Some of
make
them you've never even heard before.
we had to make an entire Adobe plugin, like
Oh
de-slur. Like
God, using the power of AI.
using the power of AI. That'd be good. Like we'll get rid of all your slurs. Welcome to Slur GPT. Like
Oh man, what would that even look like?
I don't know. Probably bad. It would probably become racist within days.
It's like Tay AI when that was a thing.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
In 24 hours, she was like, Hitler did nothing wrong. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the most believable thing I've ever seen in a comic book movie was when Ultron logged onto the internet and after 8 seconds,
And was like, yeah, y'all need to go.
we got to get rid of these people. Like,
I love that so much.
That
I love
is
that
like
so
the
much.
most. Like some people don't buy that as a villain origin. I think it's the most compelling one ever put to film. Like,
Yeah, the fact that Optimus Prime was like, we must fight for the humans after analyzing the entirety of the internet is the biggest
no,
bullshit.
it's like we must eliminate the humans. The Decepticons aren't doing it fast enough. Like, all right, I think this is probably the biggest like hype alert of the week. Seems the tide is going out with Travis Scott. He's showing off Utopia at an Astros game.
That and also the box.
Yeah. Yeah, he's
Oh my
walking
God.
around with it like it's the nuclear football, probably to prevent a similar news story to what we just talked about. So
I was gonna say,
I don't
yeah.
look, it's over the top and not silly, but very funny.
Yeah.
But it's not walking around with the masters handcuffed to your hand is not irrational.
No.
It's not.
But when you have security, like Travis Scott has security,
Yeah.
you can take risks
Oh yeah, you
like
can do that. Yeah, no, totally.
Cuddy
And
needs to hire some of those guys.
so he played it for the Astros.
Yep.
He said they're just finishing the master and then it's going to come out. What do you think we're at like an 80% chance this comes out this year?
Oh, I think it's definitely coming out this
Oh,
year.
you think it's like 100?
Yeah, I mean
pers-
he's never been one to delay a project.
Yeah, I know.
Like Astral was
Well,
delayed like what, like
he
a week?
He delayed this one quite a bit, but like,
Well, yeah, but the extenuating circumstances.
yeah, totally. But I get it. He's not someone who like pushes things back and like does that. I'm just wondering because I know they're mixing it, and it's just
Yeah.
Travis Scott makes very intricate songs. I would not. It would not blow my mind that it took over 6 months to finish it.
I
Like,
could see it being delayed from its original like slated release date, but
what's
it's
the
going to come
slated
out this
release date?
year. It's sometime this summer.
Or do they like? Do have they even announced it?
No, they haven't, but
Yeah,
it's going to be, let me tell you this, it's
I'll
going to be
believe.
August.
I'll believe
It's
it.
going to be
Look,
it's going to be August.
uh,
Astroworld was August. It's going to be the same type of release schedule, like media cycle. Then there's
yeah.
going to be the tour starting next year. It's
I'll
going to be
be.
the same process.
Jesus Christ.
I'm going. I'm going. Like we're there.
I told Purvis just put it on my tab.
Yeah. I don't care what it costs. I'll do
Yeah,
floor.
yeah,
Fuck it.
yeah, well, God, look, I
Straight
hope
up.
I hope it comes out. I'm excited for this. This is one.
It's
of the
coming
more-
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guarantee it's gonna come out. And the other thing is, I believe that once Travis gives us a date, he'll hit that date.
Yeah.
I just we haven't gotten the date yet. That's
No,
all
we
I'm
have
saying.
not.
You know,
But I'm positive it's
I
going to
would-
be later this year.
I I think it's like 80-90%. Like I think it's very likely. I just think it is not outside the realm of possibility that it takes more than 6 months to mix and then promote this album.
So he does it. Well, he's been promoting it. There were billboards last year saying "See you in Utopia."
Yes, but like an actual like label.
Yeah, like the rollout
is not going to be just that. Like it's
for sure.
they're going to
Yeah,
have to do an entire 2 weeks of P&E. Like it at least. That being said, once again, 80-90% sure on my end that's coming out this year.
yeah. I mean, one thing that I think, to his credit, Travis does is like he lets people know there's a project coming.
Yeah.
But then once the hype starts to build, it's usually out like relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Like and it tends to mirror honestly like what he does with Nike and the way Nike does it, where it's like the rumors of a new shoe. Okay, the shoe is confirmed. It's dropping in exactly 1 week. And then it's like a week passes and the shoe comes out.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't know if it's like official until the very end, but then there's a very short window where it's like confirmed and then it comes out.
And that's my point, is that we're just in that don't know phase. And it's just like
I predict we're gonna know about this album having a release date by the second week of July, and it's gonna come out by the third week of August.
okay,
That's my prediction.
It's very specific.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I have a question.
I'm just thinking about how Astroworld happened, but yeah.
I mean, I don't think that sounds wrong, but I just think, okay, I hope for you, because it's a summer album for sure.
Fingers crossed.
So my question for you is, do you ever think about like, would you want artists to be more transparent about the process? Because like, there's an author I really like, right? And every week he goes on YouTube and he says, hey, the next book I'm writing, it went from 39 to 43% done, right? And like he checks people in on the progress, so like very often and transparently. Do you think that's a kind of thing that you would want like in music, or is like because to me I think like the behind the scenes kind of mysticalness of it is kind of cool, and I kind of like that.
I definitely appreciate that as well. I like some behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I like teasing. Like there are a lot of things and a lot of like iconic music moments that have come out of like little video clips of the studio, right? Like the clip of everybody rocking to Zay, where it's just like they're all like it's stuff like that, and just like it's cool to see like some behind the scenes. Like you get like a little artist story on like live or whatever every once in a while. Tyler, for example, up in the mountains doing his thing before Call Me If You Get Lost came out, where he's like recording. Yeah, I mean, I think there's like a fine line between like way too much and giving everything away in a way that's not doesn't build the hype in a way that I guess people are really excited for, and then there's doing the opposite, which is starving your fan base to the point where they become rabid and then consume anything that sounds like you. I think Playboi Carti, I think Frank Ocean, and I think people like that. I mean, they're a Daft Punk to an extent at this point, or like up until they broke up was exactly like that.
Yeah.
And it's that shit is disappointing. Like I don't like being kept in limbo personally.
Yeah, no, it's definitely nice. And like, look, it's one thing when you're like Childish Gambino, who's making Atlanta and is like, I'm not making an album right now. and it's
Yeah.
like, you know.
Yeah, like don't leave people hanging, but at the same time, like if you're gonna make something, let them hang a little bit because that's what kind of
Yeah.
stirs the pot, you know?
Yeah, no, and no, I totally agree. Uh do you have a
Mhm.
favorite tease you've ever gotten?
That's tough.
Cuz there was one that blew my mind.
Just the lead up to Astroworld was insane. Thinking
Yeah.
back, I managed to buy the shoes that came out prior and like all this other shit, and that was such a time. And I feel very nostalgic for that, like 2018. But at the same time, I would say honestly, the lead up to man, what is it? The lead up to Passion Pain and Demon Slayin', because there were rumors then that it was going to be Man on the Moon 3,
Yeah.
and it wasn't. But at the same time, at the time, Cuddy came out and said, like, look, sometimes we can't just do the sequel. Sometimes it's got to be something different.
Yeah.
And he said that prior to it coming out. And I happened to fuck with the album, and I went to the tour, and it was like one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life. And I still, that album has a soft spot for me. So like that lead up was very much, it wasn't like aggressively choreographed and marketed, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it didn't feel just like slapdash together. It was just like, yeah, something's coming. It's going to be new, and we don't know exactly what it is, but it's happening. And there's going to be a tour for the first time in 5 years. So like
Yeah.
shit like that. Yeah, that was a big deal.
I mean, I feel differently about that album, but I do not
I
feel
know.
differently
Yeah.
about that tour.
Yeah. Exactly.
That
Yeah.
tour was so good. It made me re-listen to that album and think I might have been wrong, and I wasn't. But like, it was
Well,
it was
I don't know.
very
There's
good.
some bright spots on that album. That is a dark album with some bright spots, I would say.
You and me see dark very differently.
Fair.
Like I so as far as teases go, like the one that I always will remember and being like, this is like one of the craziest moments I've ever seen. And it's just because it was serendipitous and like borderline prophetic. But it's very sad. It's not a fun one.
Mhm.
Because it was in 2020. It was in May, right around the time of the George Floyd incident. And
Oh
LP
yeah. Yep.
posted a clip of the song of like an unreleased Run the Jewels song that would be on Run the Jewels 4,
Yeah.
where the lyric goes, and you so numb you watch choke out a man like me until my voice goes from a shriek to a whisper, I can't breathe.
Yeah.
And it's this very prophetic moment of like, holy shit, he's talking about what just happened on the news. And then, they tweeted out like, no, this was recorded in 2019. We've been mastering it all in 2020. And then within a week, because of the uprising around that event, the album was out because they were like, we can't miss this moment.
Yeah.
So it was just like this weird, like art and reality, not like intersecting, but T-boning and like unrecognizable at that point. It was one of the most
Definitely.
mind-blowing events I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's something that's tough too, right? Because like there's the Venn diagram of like commercial success versus like popular culture and like current media events versus like capitalization on both of those things
Yeah.
coinciding. And it's like sometimes it's questionable, but sometimes it just kind of happens.
Yeah. I think
Um,
in this context, when you have people who are speaking truth to power about these issues,
yeah,
I think it's appropriate. But yeah, you're right. Cause like, you don't want it to come across like, are you
it
taking
you either
advantage of the situation? Cause that's obviously horrifying. And people
yeah
did that. Like,
yeah you're either that or you're on the opposite end. You are a Kylie Jenner Pepsi commercial.
yeah. Yeah. You're
No
either
in
Killer
between.
Mike or Kylie Jenner. You're one of the two. Like,
God, there are two genders.
like
Oof.
Jesus. The unpaid nobody support non-binary identities. Like, uh, should we?
I identify as Killer Mike. Moving on.
I identify as sad. Uh,
Same.
all right, so
Too real.
we're at the challenge. We're at our main event.
Let's do it.
So this all started because over the last few weeks, I've been like very nostalgic for like my early 20s, where I'd spent a lot of time like in arcades playing old games with my friends. There was a time where I was at, I don't think it was Emporium, but it may have been. It was like 2014, where I was just playing Street Fighter with my old friends from the movie theater that I used to work at. constantly, you know. And it was
I'm
just,
guessing you liked my first song pick
I
then.
did, I did. So
Yeah.
the kind of aesthetic, the kind of vibe we were thinking of uh, for this like whole episode was let's make a mixtape. You know,
Yes.
you find a situation that you're in. It's kind of like an old fashioned thing. You make a mixtape, and that's what we wanted to do. Like, what's your like arcade gaming kind of vibe, kind of thing. But this is
Mm.
something we want to do a few different times. We have a few different aesthetics we want to hit, and we felt this one was also very strong because it would be one that highlights genres of music that we listen to that Purvis doesn't, and he's in
Mm-hmm.
London.
See
So
ya, Purvis.
yeah, I hope he's watching this. It would be a great opportunity to learn. Uh,
Yeah. I could see him sitting there just laughing,
yeah.
doing the thing he does where he like leans back from the mic,
Look directly
laughing.
into
Yeah.
your camera. Purvis, are you watching the podcast? Purvis, you
Yeah.
should be watching this. You're on this. Like, uh, so
Contribute to our viewing stats, Purvis. Come on.
come on. The analytics aren't going to juice themselves, you cologne. Like,
Be the capitalist you wish to see in the world. Consume the content you choose to consume.
Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Anyway, so we did this. We're going to include both. If you're listening to this, there's going to be links to both playlists below, so you can look at what we were doing. Jasper, how did you feel about this? What was your thought process going into it?
I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
I liked the list that I came up with. I really liked your list as well.
Yeah,
I think we approached it in very different ways, which I think is super interesting.
It's super interesting because like we have songs that are like next to each other on albums,
Yeah.
but I would say that
They're used in very different ways.
I would say almost opposites. I would say.
Yeah.
So we kind of took this prompt of like, make a 15-track mixtape for a night of gaming, and that's exactly what we did. So do you want to go 1-to-1, or I don't know? We're kind of figuring this out on the vibe, on the
Yeah,
fly.
I mean, we can go 1-to-1 unless you want to like dive in. Mine is 17 tracks, yours is 15.
Yeah.
I really, really like how we both came in at just over an hour.
Yeah.
With what we had. I think that's really fucking cool.
Yeah. No, we definitely did it. And I gotta say, I just appreciate someone who sequences a playlist. I went through mine like 10 times. Like, does this flow correctly?
Me too.
Is this the right one? There's a few transitions that I think work really well. So yeah. So let's get started. So you started with, we started our playlist very differently. I went straight into the music.
Yes, you did.
And you went with an opener. So
I did. Yes.
So explain yours.
So I went with Start by Frank Ocean, which is the little opening 40-second track off of Channel Orange.
Which totally
Frank is known for having video game sounds interspersed throughout his early projects, right? He's got a track called Street Fighter, which is the boot up sound to Street Fighter on Nostalgia Ultra. So I decided to go with that just because it kind of like sets the tone a little bit. You get like the classic like boot up sounds, and then you get into some I would say pretty retro or like synthwave inspired music that actually it's legitimate artists who are performing and making this music, but these are actually songs featured in video games as well.
Yeah. So yeah, you started with Start, which I thought was great. I thought it set the mood, and like, because there were two different ways to approach this. It's like, are you social gaming? Is this like out at the arcade kind of thing? Or is this like a music that you play? Because like gaming is like, I think by default, a home activity nowadays. You know?
For most people, unless you live in like Japan or something.
Yeah, unless you live in Japan, right? Like, there was a time before either of us were alive where like arcades were the default way to consume video games. But
that was an expensive time.
Yeah, it was an expensive time. And I think the way that arcades manifested in my lifetime is actually super interesting. I've been reading about like, there was a big decline and resurgence and everything.
Yep.
So I started mine with Separate Ways by Journey.
A super interesting pick. I really like this song a lot.
Now, this was my Tron Daft Punk reference.
Yes.
because there's a scene in Tron Legacy, where Sam Flynn gets to the
Yep.
arcade to find his father, and he turns on the power, and this is the song that plays as the arcade boots up.
Yep.
Right. So I just wanted to hit the music immediately.
Yeah.
And it totally worked for me, at least. Like,
It
and
does.
and I just think, like, you know, I played a lot with that 80s sound and a lot of like different types of the 80s sound, and I thought this was like a nice bridge between like that very synthy rich kind of lick and like the rock kind of like
Yes.
layered vocals that were kind of also part of the sound.
Definitely. Yeah. I was a little surprised with the placement just because to me this song has like such a climactic feel to it
Yeah.
that I would have expected this generally on like a more conventional and like maybe a more conventional playlist in terms of the topic that we're doing to
Yeah.
be towards like the second third of it or something, maybe like towards the middle,
Yeah.
just because of that. But at the same time, like it really works as an opener too, because it really gets your attention.
Yeah. It's like a good starting thump for the
Yes,
energy, right? And
definitely.
that was the thing I really liked about it, right?
Hmm.
And to me, it's just like it's the music that was played during the golden age of the arcade. So it's like,
Hmm.
what else
Why the
is
hell
there?
not?
And the other
Yeah,
thing is that, like,
honestly.
look, Tron came out. I don't know what year Tron came out exactly. I think it was 2000.
2010?
It was
11? Yeah,
11.
11.
11, yeah. Yeah, I was like 20 years old when Tron came out. And like that was during the resurgence of arcades where things like GameWorks and Dave and Buster's were starting to get more popular. And I remember I went to see Tron and I heard this song and I'm like, oh, sick. And then like
Yeah.
2 days later, I went to GameWorks with a friend and
Hmm.
this song started playing. So ever since then, I've associated this.
It's the direct sense memory.
It's a
Yep.
direct sense memory. And like a lot of these things, that's another thing. A lot of the picks I picked are going to be drawing directly from like my experiences in these spaces, either
Hmm.
directly or not.
Yeah. Cool.
Uh, so let's go on to your second track. This is one I enjoyed a lot.
Yep. So this is Miami Original Mix by another Jasper,
Jasper
Jasper
Byrne.
Byrne.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's super solid, kind of like similarly like an opening track.
Yeah.
And this one is actually also the menu music for the game Hotline Miami.
I love this game a lot. It's very hard though.
It is hard. Did you play it on PC?
I did.
Yeah. I will say I think 2 is even harder.
Yeah.
In that I have not beaten 2.
Yeah.
I've beaten 1.
I have not beaten
But
one. I should probably replay it with a controller.
no.
Oh, it's better
No,
with mouse
no.
and keyboard, do you think?
Way better with mouse and keyboard. Yeah.
Okay.
Being able to like look and like really focus the enemies with looking with the
Yeah.
mouse is like essential.
Yeah.
But yeah, my approach to this list from here forward is pretty much rather than generating kind of like the feeling or like what music would be playing at an arcade, my approach was really like if I were bumping around an arcade playing lots of different games from like all different periods that you would find in one, like a really big, diverse arcade, what would I find and what would be on it?
Yeah.
And I guess I do kind of intersperse that with stuff I would see like playing in the background, which we'll see later. But a lot of this is stuff I feel would either be in video games or rather is in video games at some point or is adjacent to them.
Something I think is super interesting is that not only is this literally from a video game, but I
Mhm.
think it also like very much captures that, I don't know, almost ironic, idyllic kind of like 80s vibe. And like obviously
Yes.
like that's built into the aesthetic of the game.
Yeah, the
But
second you see the title screen, you know, like what you're in for.
yeah. Uh but yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Hotline Miami. I'm a big fan of the aesthetic of it. So I thought
Yes.
this was a banging option. So I was a big fan of this. I was. So like mine was, I guess like my sentiment was like, if I owned an arcade, what would
Yeah.
I play? Like
Yeah.
that was like more my thing. That
Uh-huh.
wouldn't like scare people off too much.
Yeah.
And like once again, like this is my next track is kind of like where I kind of want to take a little bit of a detour because my next one was "Smoking and Drinking" by Danny Brown. This is one of the
Mhm.
transitions I was very proud of. I feel like
I like
the
this one.
yeah the last note from "Separate Ways" and the opening like the really like dramatic ending of Separate Ways, and then the very immediate start of this, like I think made it like a really fun 1-2 punch.
Hmm.
And this one was like just gonna keep it real here. Like when I was raised like in the late '90s, early 2000s, arcades were not really a thing at that point, or at least like where
Yeah.
I was, right?
Yeah.
Like there was like the really shitty arcade that had like 3 machines at the movie theater, and everything was super expensive.
Yep.
But that was about it, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think any of like the adult arcades were open. The only time I ever remember seeing an arcade when I was a kid was when me and my family go on vacation to like touristy locations. Our family had a house in Panama City Beach, like before it was like a spring break place, and
Gotcha.
they had a ton of arcades, right?
Hmm.
Because like it's a tourist place.
Yeah.
So my experience in this kind of space is when I was 20, 21, and I started going to bars, and like this new, like in the late 2000s, early 2010s, the craze of
Hmm.
like the barcade popped up.
Yep.
And that is like really my chief like interaction with this kind of space. Uh like I'm not that big of a dancer. I don't go to like nightclubs. When I was in college and we wanted to go out for a night, we would go to Emporium. We would go to headquarters. We would go to whatever. There's a million of them.
Yeah.
So that's why I put this one on. Just because like I thought it was like it kind of has like the grimier, completely opposite ends of the spectrum kind of thing. Almost like an Adult Swim vibe. For some reason I associate like arcades with like late night Adult Swim style content.
Hmm.
And I thought this just kind of hit everything like in the middle. And it
Just
also
gonna
has,
put Too Many Cooks
yeah,
on the playlist. Yeah.
there's too many cooks.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I wish there was an audio play version of unedited footage of a bear. But yeah, no, that was my yeah. I know, weird, right? It's about like coffee and
Throwback. God.
stuff. But yeah, so this was my second one. I think it's a fucking great song, and yeah, it's because most of the time when I'm at arcades in my life, I've been fucked up. Like,
Yep, that checks out.
yeah,
Um, so I have more tracks than you, so I'm gonna do these next two together, just so we
okay,
kind of like even out a little bit. Um, the next two are both also from the Hotline Miami soundtrack,
yeah,
also by separate artists. The first one is Hydrogen by Moon,
yeah.
and
I
then
like
the
this
one
one a
I,
lot. This is probably the one of the three I liked Hydrogen the most.
yeah, Moon is one of my favorite artists. One of their songs, like one of my favorite artists who's not like in the mainline rap genre, obviously. Um, Man, their song Dust is excellent. Really, really good. Always solid production, always instrumental, and I always really like take a lot away from it when I'm listening to it. I would say Knock Knock by Scattle also has like one of my favorite transitions from Scattle to the song after it, which we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah,
Yeah,
these two back to back are just like kind of setting the stage instrumentally for more songs that actually do have vocals
yeah.
and also songs that carry this kind of like 80s theme forward.
And
But
it's interesting because we say '80s, and I think that's just because like that's when these things were very popular.
or
So
like
like
synth pop,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And like, look, we were at an arcade like last week, and it's like you could tell
Yeah.
like that design aesthetic. It was literally a '70s themed night, and I don't think you can like escape the '80s aesthetic baked into that establishment. You know what I
100%.
mean? Like even like the Taylor Swift area, like still kind
Yeah.
of has like all the neon lights, and it kind of
Yep.
still kind of feels like that. And this was not a place that was open in the '80s. It was constructed to look like this.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of different ways to play with that sound, right? But I don't think it's the only sound that is
Definitely not.
associated with this thing. And the next one does kind of get back to my childhood. It does kind of get
Hmm.
back to like the equivalent of like those movie theater arcades, like when I was like
I enjoyed
13.
this.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
I was like 13 with my friends for the first time, like my mom
Hmm.
would drop us off at the mall. It's Fat Lip by Sum 41. Sum 41 is one of my low key favorite bands of all time. I think they are a staple in pop punk. I think they are the rare pop punk album bands
Yeah.
because like, I think a lot of especially their first few albums, really, really work as albums. And this is just like, it's one of their more iconic songs. And I think just the energy of it, you know? I was thinking about like how I wanted to get from my last song, Danny Brown, to the next song, which we'll get to. Like what kind of energy I needed to like push through that. And yeah, this isn't so much of a time with like arcade culture, but like it certainly reflects it for me.
Yeah. I absolutely love this album cover.
Yeah.
It's like the most early 2000s thing I can think of. And the fact that like the fact that the song is called Fat Lip when this is the album cover is
Yeah.
excellent. 10 out of 10.
Yeah. No.
Also, this is like the pop punk band you don't hear about.
Yeah.
They're
No, they
like
don't.
the yeah.
Yeah. No, they are. I think like recently, like if you talk to a lot of people like in that space, like in that culture of pop punk, like I think a lot of people recognize them as great, but yeah, no, they do not get like the nowhere near like the praise of Fall Out Boy. Well, Fall Out Boy and MCR, they're all in the emo slumps. But like
And also Fall Out Boy is tough because there's a local bias for us.
for sure. I
Significant.
Yeah, no, it's a significant local bias. I think like it's fair to say I think the thing that really opened my mind up to how big Fall Out Boy really was meeting Rachel, who was from Bowling Green, Kentucky, and
Yeah.
Fall Out Boy was like the most popular band there too. And it's like but yeah, when I was thinking pop punk, I was thinking more like Blink 182
Yeah.
and Good Charlotte. It maybe
Speaking of Blink 182, the observant listeners among those out there will notice we didn't even touch on the second week of Coachella because like it didn't happen.
it's just yeah.
Yeah.
Although don't boo Blink 182, they're fine. Like
I'm not. I'm just saying like the fact that it was like oh, it's like all right, this could not have been made more irrelevant to this
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. Like Blink 182 is exactly the artist we don't cover.
Yeah.
All right, so this is going to be a double hit, kind of technically. But do you want to go into your next one? Because like it was one I was certain was going to appear.
Yes. Moving from Knock Knock by Scattle, super smooth transition straight into Blinding Lights by The Weeknd.
Yeah.
The reason I include this song, the vibes are unmistakable.
How could you not?
And also, it is not just that the vibes are unmistakable to me, someone who did not live through the 1980s, but I've told this story before. I played this for my dad, who's turning 60 like next year. And I said, when do you think this came out? And he listened to it for a solid like 30 seconds. And he said, this sounds like music I listened to in 1987. Did this come out in 1987? And I said, no, this came out in 2019.
Yeah.
He just kind of like stopped and then listened to it for like another minute or so, or like maybe less than a minute. It was like, wow. And just like that was that. Because like it's such a faithful recreation to people who lived it, even that I'm floored by it.
Honestly, like, yeah, that's exactly because I have a song from this project, which I am a huge simp for. I have a song from this project on my playlist as well. I went with a different one, and we'll explain more when it gets there. But yeah, when I was deciding which one I was going to put on, it was immediately clear to me that like this was the most direct, faithful reconstruction of the 80s
Absolutely
sound, right?
Yes.
It's the reason I went another way with mine. But it is undeniable, right, that
100%.
it was just a pitch perfect recreation. It really was.
Yeah.
All right, so for my next one on my list, I had to go to what I think might be the most iconic instrumental of the 80s. And a song that like just screams out to me. I think it has like the best example of like those layered synths that defines a lot of the pop music of the 80s. And mine is I Feel Love by Donna Summer. To me, it's kind of weird because like I grew up listening to this song a lot because my mom and my grandmother loved Donna Summer.
Yeah.
But to me, like there's always been a dark tinge to this song.
For sure.
Even though it's not like when you actually like look at it, like you put any kind of critical lens on it, it's not a dark song. But maybe it's
Yeah.
because it was used in that trailer for that movie White Boy Rick. I just associate it with like classiness under the disguise of griminess, or maybe the opposite, like something like that. But yeah, no, I just think like as far as just like hitting this 80s sound like from the time,
Yeah.
I just think like it's unmistakable. Donna Summer's a goat.
I agree. I do think that this particular track is very long, almost to a fault.
Yeah, I have the same I observation about one of yours, and I picked the shortest version of this song.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah,
5 minutes and 55 seconds.
the original is 8:58,
Yeah.
and there is the 12-inch version, which is like 13 minutes.
I
So
think I know. I think I know exactly which song you're talking about on mine.
yeah, but yeah, no, I understand that argument.
Yeah, no, I mean, that being said, it fits the vibe perfectly. It's just that for me, it almost kind of felt like an intermission after Act One had passed because
Yeah.
it's so instrumental.
Yeah, no, it does kind of feel that way. It is
Yeah.
like, it is kind of interesting because I feel like there's two ways to kind of produce vocals.
Yeah.
And it's like either, it's kind of, for lack of a better phrase, flat and compressed, and then you have the singer on top of it,
Right.
or the singing is kind of woven in, right?
Hmm.
But the downside of that is that it can make it less legible, like less easy to understand. That's
Yeah.
clearly what's happening on Scaring the Hose, is like it's very much mixed in with the beat.
Yep.
I think if you want like a very brazen example of this, listen to the two different versions of Odd Look by Kavinsky.
Yes.
Because like the original version is very much woven in with the rest of the beat, and the beat feels massive. And the one with
Yeah.
The Weeknd is kind of mixed more like a traditional pop song, So I definitely think this is kind of mixed in with the beat, and it almost feels like an instrumental.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. And it's interesting because that's one of the things that I didn't really appreciate about Scaring the Hose, but I really did enjoy that Danny Brown song by itself.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I think just the production of Scaring the Hose is a detractor for me, like we talked about before. But hearing Danny Brown just like
On his
solo,
own.
yeah, it's something that I definitely enjoyed. So like that's something I want to look more into because like I've been listening to JPEG singles for a while now,
Yeah.
but now it's like I have the other half of that as well.
Yeah. I think like that sound from Scaring the Hose definitely came from JPEG.
Yeah, I could see that. It's like it's an evolution of his like very intricate kind of like fast-paced little like
I also think
like sound signatures.
I also think it's very reminiscent of his early days in the hardcore scene.
Yeah, I totally see that.
Like, I think it's very much. Now let's keep going because we're only like a third of the way through.
Yes.
Your next the next song on this that you picked was one of my favorite surprises off this experience.
Really?
I love this song.
Were you familiar with it prior to this?
No.
This is a song that I've known and liked for a long time. Spotify recommended it to me back in
This
college.
immediately went into my big playlist.
So this is Chilean Sunset by Lurker. Lurker is, I think, one of the most underrated, largely instrumental artists of all time. 16,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, but with just some excellent projects out there that do not get love. The EP this is from is called Way Too Long EP. Came out in 2015. Chilean Sunset, 13 million plays.
That's insane.
For 15,000 monthly listeners. It says a lot about the fact that this song gets picked up and cycled and like people run through it and it's instrumental, it's ambient, whatever. But there's not active listening going on here, unfortunately, which sucks because I think the discography is much better than people give it credit for. Yeah, this is another instrumental, and to me, this very much was an intermission track in a way. I wanted something that was attention catching, but at the same time could blend into the background if you weren't paying attention to it.
Yeah, no, I definitely got that sense when I listened to it because I listened to your playlist twice through completely, and both times like, obviously because it's instrumental, like there's not anything super hooky to remember it by, but each time I'm like, damn, this is just hitting.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's a bit of a palate cleanser because it takes the 80s feel down a touch, like the
Yeah,
real synth pop, because this is not that. This is very much like contemporary of its time.
yeah.
And it gets you ready for moving
I
into a
feel like
slightly different.
it's still uh I feel like it's still using the same tools, for lack of a better word, because it does feel in a place with this with the rest of the playlist. It does not. It did
It's
not.
not, yeah,
Yeah, it struck me very. It worked very well with everything else.
definitely not out of place, but definitely not like of the same cut from the same cloth, I would
Yeah,
say. And I think that's to its benefit in a lot of ways, just because it does then kind of serve as that more neutral sound, moving into a different sound that we're going to touch on after this.
yeah. But yeah, so my next one was kind of going back. Was kind of an intermission track. This one was kind of like very much a conscious step away from the synth sounds.
Hmm.
My next one was "Burning for You" by Blue Oyster Cult. Now,
I am, of all the songs on this playlist, this is the one I'm like peak familiar with,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah, no, this is one of my favorite songs of all time. Blue Oyster Cult, like when it comes to like boomer metal, like is probably like metal before it had like pre Judas
Before it was
Priest,
metal.
you know.
Yeah,
This was by far like my favorite like old school kind of stuff coming up. I love like the intricate melodies on the guitar. I love the depth to the lyrics. And I also love like how easy it is to just sing, you know? And it
totally.
yeah, and it was hard to choose between this and Godzilla, another one of their songs. But I decided to go with this one because I kind of just wanted like more of a groovy, vibey, classic rock track. Uh, because a lot of the songs on my playlist, like I kind of thought of them in pairs, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
And the songs on both sides of this, I see as a pair. So I wanted that break, and I wanted to do this.
I think that was a good take
Yeah,
to do it that way because it really fulfills that purpose,
yeah,
100%.
yeah. And not to mention the fact that I think it's just a great song that evocates the era that this entire culture evocates.
Yeah,
Not so on the nosely.
yeah, totally. It's like kind of like what preceded it slightly in a
Yeah,
way that kind of pays homage, but also like it wouldn't be out of place playing in like, I don't know, a scene out of Stranger Things or like
yeah,
something like that. Like it's earned the right to be there, it
yeah.
feels.
100%. All right, let's get
This is a
into it.
real boring episode. We have no disagreements. It's just we're just
That's
enjoying each other's
fine. It's
playlists.
fine. It's fine. Let's talk about
We
the
can get
little.
along sometimes.
We get along all the time as long as you don't talk about those filthy fucking robots, but not these filthy fucking robots. Like
There you go.
these guys, they're fine as long as they're not talking. Uh,
Yeah, right.
so
All right. My next track.
I think
Following,
this was an artist that I think was a gimme. Not like
yeah, of course.
I think with anyone, if I did this if I did this little thing with anyone, I think Daft Punk was going to show up.
100%.
Normally,
So,
I have a rule like when you make a playlist, you try your hardest to only put an artist on one time. But like it's Daft Punk,
nah,
it's
dude.
an arcade.
Nah.
I get it. This one I think fulfills the assignment. So
Yeah.
go over. You have three of them, but you got two in a row. So why don't you go
I
over
have
these two?
I have three, yeah, two in a row is good just to keep it consistent. So following the kind of ambient break with Lurker, we go into Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. Peak Classic,
Yeah.
Discovery 2001. Um, Honestly, just
No,
fully
it
fits
just
the vibe of.
yeah.
This is like, for me, this is very much the point at which you're like really falling into playing games where you're like,
Yeah.
you start to lose track of time.
Yeah.
This is like the trance of like getting focused
Yeah,
on
the
something.
flow state.
The flow state, 100%. And that leads directly into Derezed off of the Tron Legacy soundtrack, another super classic track of theirs,
Yeah.
fully instrumental. But it's like you fall into the flow state and things are going well with Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, and then you get to a boss fight and that's Derezed. That's
Yeah.
like my
Yeah,
way of thinking about it.
God, D-Res is so good. Do you hate me if I say that the Tron Legacy score is my favorite Daft Punk album?
We've talked about this before. No, I don't hate you for it, but I also don't think you're right.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I'll give you that. Uh, Look, I love these two picks. I look, I almost had Get Lucky on mine, and I almost had Get Lucky on mine because it came out the summer I turned 21. I don't go to nightclubs, so I went to a lot of parkades. The
Yeah.
song was everywhere. It's like I probably have like sat at like an arcade cabinet to the song Get Lucky more than any other song. But it just didn't fit in the vibe of the playlist very well.
Yeah.
Uh so I 86'd it, and I knew this was going to be ground that we were going to cover.
Yeah. 100%.
So I ain't mad about it.
No,
Uh
definitely not.
so for my next one, I kind of see it as like a partner with I Feel Love by Donna Summer, and that is Love by Kid Cudi.
Yes.
And that's just, it's the entire song being built on those swelling synths, right? And like they sound very different. They sound very much like they came out 30 years apart from each other. But damn, dude, like when I was listening back to my own playlist, I was like, they do sound alike though. Like, and yeah, this is just another song that like has a lot of personal meaning to me. For
Yeah.
this song, like, it was the reason I kept SoundCloud on my phone for years. Like, uh, and I think it hits the vibe. And this is a hip hop podcast, so I wanted to make sure there was some hip hop
Yes.
on the playlist I put in, and I felt like this was my favorite addition to have.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's got that really like, I guess, very anthem feel to it in a way that is
Anthemic. I think that's like the thing that kind of cuts across both of our playlists is like this feeling of either ambience or anthem.
totally, yeah. And it's one of those things where it fits the setting really, really well because it gives you the option of tuning in and like listening to the song for the song being good, but also having it kind of fade into the background like you kind of want with a lot of when you're engaged in something like
Totally.
gaming where you don't want it to be the focus of your time. Like
Yeah.
I would not be able to play Halo and listen to Pimp a Butterfly at the same time. It's not possible.
I could because those groovy Thundercat grooves just time up my reloads. But
Yeah,
to each
but
their own. Like,
but
but I
the
I
judge
yeah,
the judge makes time. I do not make time when I'm playing Halo.
that's fun.
Bad
But
take.
no,
Anyway,
no, but like I get it. No, I totally understand that. Like when you're doing something, you don't want to listen to anything too dense, right?
Yeah.
Or at least it has to work at that surface level, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, no, I love this song. Love it's called Love. Uh I love the aesthetic. I love the vibe of it. Zero complaints.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, my next one, moving on from that. So if Derez was like the boss fight, maybe I got tired of that game. I went off and tried a different game. We've got At Doom's Gate by Mick Gordon, which
Dude,
is the.
I love this fucking thing. I love the Doom score so much.
Have you played? Have you played
Oh,
2016?
I've played Doom 2016 so many times.
Okay, good.
I
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I was a little late to it. I didn't play it until I got into PC gaming in 2020.
Yeah,
But I've replayed. I'm actually replaying it right now. I started replaying it like a
Nice.
month ago. I'm playing
Yeah.
Tears of the Kingdom now, so we'll see if I get to it in a little bit.
Godspeed. 200 hours later.
Oh my god, it's so good. I just build so many little carts.
I might have to buy it, dude. I don't want to, but I might have to.
It's so good.
Fuck
It's so
Nintendo, but also like.
Nintendo's great. I love Nintendo. They're my emotional support corporation.
I feel it.
Like,
feel it.
but
I mean, yeah, I have too
it's-
much Pokemon merch. I feel that.
Oh my god, yeah. Speaking of, if I could take a quick Tears of Kingdom sidebar,
Go for it.
I
Go
am
for it.
shocked at how much better it runs than Pokemon. Like,
Yeah.
because that Pokemon.
I mean, it's the same
release-
engine.
Is it? Because like the Pokemon release last year was abysmal. And,
Well,
like,
I'm saying it's the same engine as Breath of the Wild.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's the same physics engine, and yeah, no, it's. I'm kind of shocked that a game this big is running this well on a 7-year-old handheld.
Yeah, I'm so torn because on the one hand, like I like the Switch and I like the hardware and I think it's like a smart console. On the other hand, it is really showing its age, and I kind of want my games to play at higher refresh rates, which the Switch
Yeah.
doesn't support. It's like 30 FPS. So
It does 60 for some games, but like
for some, yeah, but not
Mario
Breath of the
Kart.
Wild
Yeah,
or
no, not Breath
Zelda.
of the Wild.
Yeah,
It's not like you get pretty consistent 30 in handheld.
yeah.
Uh, and like, look, it hasn't bothered me at all, but it's not. The performance of the game is not stellar. I think the graphics are okay, and the
Yeah.
art direction is phenomenal.
I've
So
definitely seen some chugging when people are like building larger structures and like moving them around and the frame rate starts to
yeah,
dip and I'm just like, ugh.
yeah, yeah. No, it's I feel that. I feel that rub. But for me, I don't know. It's just working.
I know.
It
I'm a
also
snob
it
is what it
plays
is. That's the problem.
it plays so well into my biases though, because like
Yeah.
anything with like verticality, I love. I love any kind of like thing where you're going up and down and flying, and there's a lot of that.
Have you ever
Uh,
played Towerfall?
no. Uh,
We're gonna have to play Towerfall together.
okay, we'll play Towerfall, and then I also love the puzzles. The puzzles are very lateral thinky,
Yeah.
and it's just not something you get in a game of lot. I think it's going to be a reason a lot of people don't like the game. I
Yeah.
think it could very easily be Elden Ring to other people. Like they don't.
I mean, it's getting perfect tens from everybody. So
Yeah, I just can understand someone being like, I don't want to design a cart when I get home. Like,
yeah, I feel that.
yeah, I think like that's going to be a critique that is levied against this game fairly.
Yeah.
All
Makes
right,
sense.
done with the gaming break, I guess. But yeah, no, At
Yeah.
Doomsgate goes hard. The entire
Yes.
soundtrack goes hard. I was just upset it was only a minute long.
It's the short one, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of a taster of like hop off the boss battle, go play a different game, and it happens to be like Doom in an arcade, and it's like boom,
Yeah.
there it is.
Yeah. No, it definitely gets. Oh, man, I really wish you could just like in Spotify, you could just add like little like sound effects and stuff. Because like if you just had like the sound effect of like a menu screen and then like, you know, maybe like the selection like little notification sounds, that shit would pop
You
off really hard.
you could do that in OBS to layer over a stream.
Yeah. Yeah, you could. We gotta
Yeah.
figure out how to do that if we eventually want to make this show streaming.
God, imagine.
God. All right. So my next one. Are you familiar with the Midnight?
So I've heard things by the midnight before in passing. I don't think I've ever actually known. Like I looked at their Spotify page after this. I don't think I've ever actually known a song I listened to was them.
Wow. So
Yeah.
they're actually a local band.
Really?
They're from here, and so the reason I picked this one is because I went to a release party for this album at Emporium in Logan Square, and it was like,
Sick.
yeah. So it was like, they weren't there. It was just like, oh, the Midnight released something. Come play games and drink and listen to it. And I'm like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
And like, it's just sense memory. It's just, I think it hits that vibe perfectly. It is exactly there's two songs on here that I think are kind of like a pair of completely recreated 80s sounds. And this is
Mhm.
one of them. And I think it does it super well. And they're local boys. So of course I'm biased.
Yeah. No, that's totally valid. It's a super solid pick. I mean, even the album cover plays into the theme. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. All right. So let's get to this next one. Jasper, this song's too long.
Is it?
I'll say this. The
Are
song
you
is
a
incredible.
human after all hater?
Huh?
Because I don't talk to human after all haters.
No, I'm not a human after all hater. I like that album.
Okay,
I
cool.
like this song. I think
Cool.
it sounds incredible. I think it's like one
Good.
of the best little sequences. It just
Yeah.
doesn't need to be 5 minutes long. This could be a 3.5 minute song, and you know it. Like,
Unfortunately, I don't make the rules. But
but
yeah,
no, if I was when I said like, oh, there's a song on here that I thought was like too long to the point where like I was like, is this still going on?
yeah.
It was.
It's
this.
interesting to me that you feel that way about this, even though Lurkers, the Chilean Sunset, is only like 20 seconds less.
It's because this song is, I feel like, much more repetitive.
It is. I will give you that.
Yeah, and like once again, I think the little beat that it's repeating over and over again, I think sounds incredible, delectable.
Yeah.
Right. That it sounds great. It's just like it's this great sound played to me over and over again 90 times.
Yes.
Like, and look, so like I'm not hating on the song. I'm just like, damn, this could be 3.5 minutes long. Like,
if anyone hasn't picked up on it yet, the song we're talking about is Robot Rock
Robot Rock
by Daft Punk. And yeah, I mean, Human After All, it's kind of what you expect.
Is that like the long-winded Daft Punk album? Is that what it's known as?
No, but it's known as the industrial Daft Punk album, which is why a
Oh,
lot of people didn't like it when it came out because everybody wanted the like retro future disco vibes of Discovery for their next project, and they went a much like harder route. So you get tracks like The Brainwasher, you get stuff like what is it, Television Rules the Nation? Is that on there?
yeah,
Um, and you get stuff that's just generally like harder in sound, heavier
yeah.
synth, Technologic,
Logic, yeah,
yeah, stuff like that. Steam
yeah,
Machine, which is
yeah. Steam
very
Machine,
like
yeah,
challenging, I think, for a lot of people.
yeah. No, like I
But
think this album works. I just thought like specific,
yeah.
and like I haven't listened to Human After All in a long time, but I
Hmm.
definitely have listened to it because I know all these songs.
Yeah.
Uh, I just thought like in the context of this playlist, I just thought it ran a little long in the tooth.
It
But
definitely did.
yeah, but
Um,
that's minor.
for me, the vibe I was channeling there was like if you switch over from like Doom to say something like Punch Out, and like this
Ah,
is what you're listening to while you're playing Punch Out or something like that. That's like kind of the feel there. Like going around getting like a little I guess a sampler of every little arcade game that's playing in the kind of like main row that they have at the shop. That'd be the spot there.
yeah. No, I totally agree. Look, it's a good song. I don't think Daft Punk is capable of putting out bad songs. I just think maybe they can make songs that are a little repetitive.
Sure.
And I don't even think of that about a lot of their stuff.
Yeah.
I've heard that criticism before, and I think it's kind of overused.
It's like allow me to introduce you to 5.5 minutes of Around the World.
Yeah, around the world should bother me, but it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Yeah, no, it
I
doesn't.
love that song.
It's
Yeah, I mean, it's music for clubs.
it is.
What is an arcade
Oh,
if not a club where you play video games?
that I mean that's really exactly my conceit.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna go back.
do
I'm
it.
gonna go my next one. My
Tell
next
us
one
about.
is Heartless by the
Oh
Weeknd.
yeah.
The off after hours, separated only by a track from Blinding Lights.
Yep.
And the reason why I went with Heartless and over Blinding Lights was one like the idea of like if I owned the arcade, what would I be playing? And I would want to play something a little bit more unhinged than Blinding Lights.
Yeah,
But I
I
guess like
agree.
what I came down to is I think Blinding Lights is a very faithful recreation of that 80s sound.
Totally.
I think Heartless is a subversion of it. It
Yeah.
takes the sound of the 80s, it mixes it with the Metro Boomin trap, and it makes something very modern out of that palette. It's using like the same brush and paint as Blinding Light to make something completely different. So I thought that would just made it a little bit more interesting. Obviously, Blinding Light gets just style bonus because like goddamn, it's just this
It's
incredible.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, look, I think there's definitely an argument that that song was overplayed. Not for me. I still love
No, me
Blinding
neither.
Lights.
Me too.
But I thought for my pick on this was definitely to go a different direction with it. So I went with Heartless.
I messed with that choice. Super, super solid. And I'm very excited for the next two that are on here. But
Yeah.
rolling back to mine real quick.
Yeah.
My follow-up track to Robot Rock, you're done playing Punch Out. You go to a
Yeah.
classic like vintage fighter game.
Afterburner or something.
Afterburner, Ace Combat, like the original
Fighter jet
2Ds. And
games.
I don't think Pilot Wings was ever really an arcade game.
No, that
but
was Nintendo Home Console.
yeah. But that comes to mind too. It's Danger Zone, Kenny Loggins,
God.
originally from the Top Gun soundtrack.
This is a fantastic addition. It's a fantastic song. And I have to tell the weird story about why I don't think about Top Gun when I hear this song. Because this was in another movie, a movie I did not Google before I started this show.
Go
It
on.
was in it was in a child's Alvin and the Chipmunks movie where they do a parody of Batman. And during the suit up scene, this
What?
song plays.
What the fuck?
And I always
Is that allowed?
Yeah, it's like yeah. So this song plays when Alvin is dressing up as Batman to go fight the Joker.
Oh my
And
god.
Uh, dude, the funniest thing, like my parents got me a bunch of Alvin and the Chipmunks stuff when I was a kid, and like
Hmm.
they got me this one that had like Alvin and the Chipmunks music videos, and like one of them was just it was the Beat It music video, and like the audio was completely unedited. It was basically the same thing as the Thriller CD,
Yeah.
but like they just animated Alvin over like doing a dance with Michael Jackson. It's hilarious.
Like painted over like Jessica
Yeah,
Rabbit
yeah,
style.
exactly,
Oh my
exactly
god.
like that. Yeah.
Oh, I need to see that. That
Yeah,
sounds
I'm gonna
hilarious.
try and dig on the internet when I'm editing this episode, and I'll put it in the description or whatever. What the fuck? Like, but yeah, no, this song is incredible. It's an incredible pick, and I had a very weird reaction to it, and I had to tell you about it. I'm sorry.
For me it's this, and also obviously Grand Theft Auto 5, because
Yeah,
this makes an appearance in the Grand Theft Auto 5 soundtrack, and Kenny Loggins is the DJ for Los Santos Rock Radio. They actually got him to play the voice of the DJ as himself. But the other thing I want to point out is that this song inserts itself perfectly into the timeline of arcade culture. 1985. Like, this is it. This is the year. The
yeah,
year of the center of the arcade boom.
yeah. No, this is it. This is
You
the
start in
sound.
80 to like maybe 94 is like arcade period, I guess. I wasn't there. I don't know. But like just based on my own knowledge of, NES and then the Super Nintendo coming out and kind of like stealing the thunder a little bit. Yeah, I mean this falls squarely in that period. But yeah, that was my follow-up pick.
Ooh.
But then moving back, you picked a song that I want to talk about.
Okay, tell me about this because this
Oh
one,
my God.
I felt like I had to go with this song. Which version of it was initially a
Yeah.
toss up? However, I felt like the original worked the most on the playlist.
Yeah. And this is the one that gets the radio play. The last time I heard this song prior to this, I was probably like
We're talking
in
about
my
Sweet
mom's.
Dreams are made of this by the Eurythmics.
Yes, with Annie Lennox, very
Yeah.
importantly. Yeah, this song, I probably last heard this song when I was like 14 years old in the back of my mom's car going to like Highland Park for a doctor, like a dentist's appointment or something. Like, it's just
Yeah.
one of those songs that was always on the radio when I was a kid, always driving with my mom, and
Yeah.
she loves this song, and she would always like crank the volume. And it's a bop, like it hits.
It's
Like,
such a good song.
yeah, usually
It's
we
hypnotic.
tend
There's a
to.
reason why.
Totally, yeah, and usually like I feel like
Hey,
young
what's
people
up?
tend
You're
to
DJ.
kind of, you know, shoo away their parents' musical tastes in some way. Just maybe it's rebellion, maybe they have their own taste that's evolving. This song has always hit for me, and I've never been like, nah, I don't like this. This has always been like, man, throwback, very specific sense and just general memories with this one.
Yeah. So totally agree. And like I have a similar experience where like, yeah, this was like on the radio as like I was a kid because like, 15 years later, that's when things really
Yeah.
get on the radio. And it's just
Mhm.
like it's the sound. It's just the sound. Like it is
Yes.
I think it is best reflected by Danger Zone as just like this is what it sounded like when it was actually going on.
Yep.
And like I have another song immediately after this, which I feel like is another like recreation of that sound. And like I think putting the two together I think is interesting.
It is. I like the next one that you have for its meme value as well, but we'll talk
Ooh,
about it.
Yeah, I know. It's a meme song. It is not a song anyone looking at me and knows me as a human being would probably think I put on this. But this song, that entire album is incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But please go on. You have a favorite suite of music.
Yes. So my next track is
This was another like little sorbet, taste refresher kind of thing.
yeah, this is definitely a palate cleanser. This is the end of Act 2 with Danger Zone being the climax of that. We move into Love Theme from the Blade Runner soundtrack, the original Blade Runner soundtrack by Vangelis, who is an artist I brought up on the podcast before. I don't think he gets anywhere near enough credit in how instrumental he's been in kind of shaping the sound of soundtracks across all of Hollywood up until this point. He really perfectly married the synthesizer and the traditional score in a way that
Yeah.
I think few artists were, no artist did up until that point, and few have been able to do as well since.
I mean, he really brought the synthesizer to life on Blade Runner. I mean, like,
Hmm.
really, I wouldn't doubt if the Eurythmics were like, I cannot say that artist's name. I wouldn't doubt if they had some inspiration from the Blade Runner score because, like, it does feel like a zero, like a nexus point for this entire type of music.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just one of those very like pivotal moments. Again, kind of 80s, very classic cyberpunk aesthetic. Also one of the films that I think really cemented or kind of furthered what became like the what became known as the cyberpunk aesthetic in general.
I listened
Um,
to a podcast earlier today all about the history of cyberpunk.
yeah,
It was very interesting. It's my one of my favorite science fiction genres, and yeah, this was like one of the
the
things that
Inception,
the one of
one
them.
of the
Yeah,
Inceptions. Yeah,
yeah. The visual aspect of cyberpunk was certainly created by this. I
for
think
sure.
Neuromancer, the book, came out
Yes.
a year or two before this, which
Yeah,
was a
Neuromancer is something that I need to get into, man.
oh,
I've
I should
been
show you. Oh,
I've been putting it
Oh,
off.
you want to see something?
Do it.
So you guys have albums and shoes and shit. The thing I collect is like really nice editions of books,
Hell yeah.
and this is my
Ooh, look at that
Neuromancer.
cover.
Like it's
That's spicy.
yeah. It I have a copy of Dune that matches this,
That's sick.
and this one's in storage, but the Once and Future King, the T.S. Eliot King Arthur
Oh,
story.
hell
So
yeah.
like yeah, no, Neuromancer's a favorite of mine. If you can't tell, this is also like $12, so it's not like hard
Yeah.
to find.
Yeah, I need to
Like,
grab a copy. I had a PDF, but I don't know where it went. But
yeah,
just
PDF of
some like
Neuromancer's really on the nose.
true. Closing thoughts on Evangelist and love theme. It is almost 5 minutes long. It's definitely like the big palate cleanser before the final
Yeah,
kind of act. That being said, if you like smooth sax
it's
and
good.
like, yeah, when I
Which
first
was
heard this
also
track,
a sound of the '80s. Like it's not.
yeah,
It is
when
not
I
immune to the conventions of the genre.
totally when I first heard this track, I didn't know saxophone could sound like this because I
Wow.
had only ever listened to saxophone really in the context of jazz music as it kind of was popular. This definitely changed my approach to the barriers that instruments appear to have within a certain genre or within genres and how they can be used across different genres as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. Damn. Now that you're saying like, oh, these are acts, I definitely see this last act. Last act definitely makes a lot of sense to me.
So yeah, because the last act pertains to one of my favorite genres of video games, but we'll get into
We'll
it.
get to that. Yeah. Okay, give me 1 second. My mother is asking about her dog. Uh, all right.
I'm gonna
So,
say who you gotta introduce the guest on the
oh yeah,
podcast this
this is
week.
Talia. She is my mother's dog. She likes to sit down and sleep.
We love Talia.
She's so good. And yeah, I'm not gonna have to edit out any barking, and that's phenomenal. That's why she's the best dog.
Good dog.
Uh, all right. So my next one is kind of a curveball, but I think it hits the sounds that defines this culture so heavy, and it's "Run Away with Me," the opening track of Carly Rae Jepsen's "Emotion." This song hits.
I don't even for me it's not even the song. I just hear that intro and it's like I automatically have to T-pose.
Yeah, no, it's like a very funny intro, but
I lose control of my body. It's just ba ba na ba.
I just hear because like I'm actually unfamiliar with any meme around this album.
Really?
I
Wow, okay.
I just listened to it because like uh when the '80s sound was starting to come back, like in 2019. I remember everyone saying like, "Oh, Carly Jepsen was way ahead of the time with Emotion. She did like the entire thing before." I went back, I listened to it, and I'm like, "God damn, this is incredible." So when
Yeah.
I was putting this together, I was like, at first I was like, "Is this going to be funny? Is this going to be a lark?" But then after I listened to the album, I'm like, "No, this is legitimately some of the best synth music put out in the last 20 years. And that
Fucking
includes
banger.
and that includes The Weeknd. So I have I have no shame.
I don't blame you. I mean,
Yeah.
it's super solid. Good song. And I think a lot of Carly Rae Jepsen stuff,
She's
was
super
looked at.
talented. She's
Yeah, I
super
think a lot of people.
talented.
I think a lot of people looked down on it when it came out or
She's
at the time.
a lot of people
And I
see
think
her
it's
as
aged
pop.
very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's aged very well. With all that being said,
Okay. All right, so your
Mm,
next one. I'm gonna keep it real with you, Jazz. This was my
mhm.
favorite song on your playlist.
I thought so. I figured this would be up your alley.
This is really, really good.
So next up is a really interesting song. It's "Sleepwalking" by the Chain Gang of 1974, which is a song that was specifically written and made for Grand Theft Auto 5. It's one of the original tracks that shipped with, I believe it shipped with the game as part of like the in-game radio.
Yeah.
Super cool song. I absolutely love the opening and the intro.
Yeah.
It's just like this very memorable. It's not quite retro, it's not quite futuristic. It's just like somewhere in the middle sound that still is kind of timeless. Like it's synth, it's heavy drums. It's really interesting, deep and layered vocals, but in a way that is,
Yeah.
it's like it can again it can fade to the background,
Yeah.
but it also commands attention in a way.
It sounds like synth pop via the 2000s indie New York rock scene.
There you go. That's a perfect way of describing it. I
Yeah,
couldn't have said it better.
But it's a perfect combination, and it really does. I think like the risk you run, and I think we kind of both avoided this in our own ways.
Mhm.
With a playlist like this, is like, does it just sound the same? Is it just blinding lights for an hour? You know?
Hell no. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's a risk you run when you make something like this.
totally.
I think a song like this is like, and obviously you have other ones that like I think play into that. I think, At Doomsgate, Knock Knock, Danger Zone, for all of its memeness, I think all subvert those expectations. I
Yeah.
think this is the best example of it, though. It feels of a piece. It feels new. This is gonna be on my Spotify repeat by next week. I guarantee you. It's very good.
I really, really like it.
This is a
Yeah,
very
it's-
good song. This is my favorite song on the playlist. And I'll be honest with you, this next stretch, I liked it, but it was it was like, what's going on? Like, I was
See,
like,
this is the part where when I said you're gonna hate this is what I was referring to. Was
I
this
didn't
last
I
stretch.
no, I did not hate it. I was just like, these are anime intros? Like,
No, they're not.
I know.
This is a genre of music I've been waiting to roll out on the podcast.
yeah,
so we'll talk
we're gonna
about
be
it.
asking about this because I'm curious about this genre of music.
Yes.
Uh
But yeah, let's swing back your way.
My next one is another 80s classic. But I think it kind of mixes like this sense of like raw punk energy with
Yeah.
the classic 80s synth sound. It's a
Mhm.
band, it's an artist that I was shown when I was like 13 years old by my cousin Alan, who showed me all the cool music when my parents wouldn't. Billy Idol's
Shout out Alan.
Rebel Yell.
Yep.
It's I think just like a classic in its genre. I think it is one of the best songs of the 80s. And I think it's the closest I get to like bridging the gap between like that 80s classic rock sound and that 80s synth pop sound.
Yes. Billy Idol
that
was
and-
always very good at that.
Yeah. That and separate ways just as a keyboard. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a great song. But like
Yeah.
it doesn't really have the synth pop kind of aspect to it. It just has the instrument. This I feel
Yeah.
like kind of does the whole thing.
It's
like,
funny because
yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And I could have put White Wedding on it, but
I was gonna do that. I was just gonna say it's funny because I was considering putting White Wedding Part 2 because
Yeah.
that has that little synth kind of riff to it
yeah.
that then goes into the chorus. So
Yeah, no, totally.
yeah, good tracks
Oh.
though. Rebel Yell, I really like the vocal inflection on it.
Yeah.
He's got that like growly thing going on. It's nice.
No, it's a super hard song to cover. A band that I'm not the biggest fan of, Drowning Pool, they have a really good cover of it.
Interesting. Yeah.
All right,
All right.
let's get into this. Now, like I liked these songs, but they were very wacky to me, all of these.
Yes, they are.
So
That's
this
the
is,
entire genre.
Deja vu. What is the genre? Because to me, I'm like, is this anime intros? Is this power metal? Is this DDR music? What's going on?
Allow me to introduce one of my favorite super weird niche subgenres of music. It's called Eurobeat. What is Eurobeat, you might ask? It
Everything
is
bad comes from Europe. No, I don't. This isn't.
everything everywhere all at once.
Everything.
Pretty much it is like the guitar styles of power metal over heavy fast synth tracks combined with just like very fast vocals in English by people whose first language is very much not English.
Yeah, yeah, you can
So
tell.
yeah,
This
so
had German singer all over it.
yeah, so sleepwalking through the end of the list here, and we're going to talk about Deja Vu, which is the first one up. This third act for me was like you get into the driving simulator at the arcade, because I love driving games. I love racing games. I've been playing them for years. I've been a Forza guy for almost like over 10 years now at this point, probably. I've played most of them. But yeah, these songs all became popular through an anime. But it was never, yeah, these originally were all featured in Initial D, which was like the OG like car guy anime.
Oh, okay.
If you're familiar at all, if our audience isn't familiar, Initial D is basically the story of like some high school kids in Japan who live in this town at the foot of a mountain. And on the other side of the mountain is another town. And the main character's dad runs a delivery business delivering fresh tofu, and he drives it at night up through the mountain pass and over to the other town. And turns out this mountain has started to attract attention because it's a kind of like a rally stage or like a road rally course. So all these little like racing teams from all over Japan are kind of coming together and like trying to set good times and like beat each other and win races and whatever. And these kids who are in the town, this one guy really wants to get involved, the friend. So then the main character talks to me, he's like not super interested. But turns out he's actually like an unbelievable driver because he's the one who's been doing the tofu runs for his dad for like 3 years, and he's only like 15 years old and whatever. But basically becomes the story of him like not wanting to participate in this like racing subculture, but then kind of being dragged into it against his will, and then kind of like coming to terms with it.
That's interesting.
And so yeah, these songs are all very much like that. It's like very much like Japanese drift culture, like midnight club style type stuff.
Yeah.
And
it definitely felt like interesting. It was definitely,
yeah.
I had a hard time placing like what this could be. And I was like, it did sound arcadey though. It did like all, and we'll go back and forth still, and we can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Deja Vu, I think honestly was the one that was like the hardest for me to get through.
Really?
Yeah. Deja Vu was,
I would have thought Running in the 90s or Gas.
No, I liked Gas. Like at first I thought was like hilarious. Like,
do you like
maybe
my
not,
car?
Maybe not intentionally hilarious, but by the end of it, I was unironically into the song.
That's dope.
And Running in the 90s, I genuinely liked. I thought it was like, when I was listening to it both times, I was like, it's like a little bit more toned down, you know, of the vibe.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna run through my last two at a time.
Go for it.
So my next one is "Teleport to Me, Jamie."
One of my favorites.
Yeah, no,
instant classic.
And like it's the synth licks. It's just that sound, and it's also like the vaguely romantic aspect of it. I think we all have like this romantic aspect of romantic in like the classical artistic sense of like you know, of like this space where people come together to do the things they love. You know, there's no other reason to go to an arcade other than you love video games or you love being around people.
Yeah.
So I think like it kind of hit that tone right away. And the other thing is at this point, I'm starting to think more about narrative, and I'm like, the night's coming to an end.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this and the next song kind of like play in that the night is ending kind of thing. And the next one is Shout by Tears for Fear, which is just, to me, it just is a classic of that era.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't resist putting it in.
Totally. I mean, it was unavoidable. Tears for Fears is like a staple of the period.
Yeah. And it's not even that synth heavy, but it's much, but I feel like aesthetically it ladders up completely.
Absolutely, yeah. And Teleport to Me, Jamie, I think also definitely shares some DNA with other kind of popular contemporary songs that emulate the genre and the period. I think
Yeah.
about Night Call, like Kavinsky,
Yeah, totally.
and there's like songs from this period that are like moody that communicate like a sense of longing in some
Yeah.
way.
Yeah,
That's definitely
totally.
like its own little niche. And yeah, it's just like it's an interesting mix of like contemporary elements layered over what is
Something very
fundamentally like
retro.
yeah, a retro and like classic feel, but then also a very classical kind of story or dilemma that the character of the song finds himself
Yeah,
in. So
definitely. A very classic. Yeah, I think it's interesting that like I think the story of the song is very classic just like you said.
mhm.
But it's also very modern. Like it's like
Yeah.
there's a line about texting, and it's like, oh, I've been there. Like I've been like waiting for people to text me back when I should be
Yep.
going to sleep,
Oh yeah.
right? And it makes you feel romantic and nostalgic about your own life. The things you
Yeah.
went through. Because I bought Wizard. Like I was 22 when Wizard came out. Like,
Damn.
ugh,
That's like pivotal age for that too. I
yeah,
was
no.
a lot younger and I
I
don't think it impacted me the way it should have, but
honestly, I had to come back and find it. Like I
yeah.
listened to it at first, and I was like, this is cool, but not my thing.
Yeah.
And then I came back to it, and I really liked it.
It's so good.
Now, do you want to run through Gas Gas and the top a little bit?
Let's do Gas Gas running in the 90s and
Okay.
then I'll
I liked
okay, and
Running in the
then
90s. I thought Running in the 90s was a lot of fun.
yeah, that's another one that's like a classic kind of staple of the genre. Um, both of these are also just like super classic Eurobeat songs. They're both a little longer, around a little over 4 minutes each,
Yeah.
and they very much are. And there's like one more that I didn't include that I should have called "Don't Stand So Close," which is like another super hit from like this period.
Yeah.
But both of these are just like super frantic, very intense, lots of synth, lots of like keyboard
Guitar.
and also guitar like layered on top of each other. And Gas 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 is very much like specifically about like I have a fast car to do the thing, and then Running in the 90s is very much just like I guess more so like culturally like take a chance and like try this thing and like join this group and which is kind of like what the show is about as well, Initial D.
Yeah.
But yeah, both of these I think very much communicate that kind of style, but they bring it forward by a decade because Eurobeat really hit its stride in the 90s.
Yeah. It's a 90 was it a 90s genre?
Yeah, pretty much, which is why it's used in Initial D because Initial D was like when anime was becoming more mainstream as like a consumption I guess subgenre or genre of media within Japan and then also more globally after the rise of Akira in the late 80s. Um yeah, Initial D was like the first like car like automotive based anime pretty much. And so like all of this music was used for it because this was the music of like European club scene where you would find like that was linked to like performance cars that were in the European motoring scene. So like late night like Porsche runs or like the Autobahn and things like that. Like and some of that car culture did eventually get imported to Japan as well. Midnight Club, which is like the most famous group in Japan, one of their members had a like super tuned, I think it was 80s Porsche or something that was capable of running at over 200 miles an hour for like the entirety of its gas tank. Um, so yeah, I mean, there was a lot of kind of like European culture being imported to Japan at the time in the way of like tuner culture and just
Yeah.
like car guy syndrome, and that really showed in media. And this was an example of that like it got made more popular because of it. It's like how like jazz culture from the U.S. has become popular in Japan over like last 10 years, and now in Japan they're making better like American clothing and also better like bourbon than the US ever has. They've like taken American cultural exports and emulated them or like
Yeah.
recreated them in a way that's like very faithful to the original while also being like elevated in that like cultural way.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of like Japanese whiskey.
Yeah, exactly.
Is very similar to Scotch to the point
Yeah.
where a lot of Japanese distilleries will send people to Scotland to chop down trees to get the actual wood that they use to make scotch in Scotland. And they bring it
Yep.
back to Japan.
The brand Visvim, for example, is a Japanese clothing brand that specializes in making like what looks like vintage Americana workwear.
Yeah.
And you're looking at paying $900 to $1,600 for a pair of moccasins, but they're like the last pair of moccasins you'll ever need to buy because they're like fully handmade and they just like are very true to like the core ethos of like handmade goods that emulate like a different era in a lot of ways. But it's just like insane craftsmanship over like a very like detail obsessed culture.
Yeah. All right. So we're getting to the end of this.
Oh
And a
yeah.
conceit I wanted to pull out from video gaming was the idea of like a split ending. And I'm aware
Yeah.
this is not a thing in arcade games, but it's my show. Our show. So I kind of thought, like, what if this had a bad and a good ending?
Yeah.
So the bad ending to me was Deep Space 9mm,
Yeah.
the LP song. And to me, like, going back to that Adult Swim, I see this very much like paired up with Danny Brown, you know, and it's just kind of like, you know, when you're in these highly volatile social interactions, they don't always end well. You don't always go home having a great time.
For sure.
And this just kind of gets to that vibe, like that feeling of like having to trek home at 1 a.m. across the city. Like
There's a level of anxiety to this.
there's a level of
100%.
anxiety of just like all the sound, like just kind of like crushing in on you. Right.
Yep.
And I thought that because it was the bad ending, it should not be the last thing people hear.
Yes.
So that was
I like it.
my sense on this. And also it's one of my favorite songs. It's like kind of up there with Day and Night with me. Not in terms of like how much I love it, but in terms of like the vibe I think it captures of like that.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think it's very much like you can see that. I think this is a song I show people when I like make the argument that LP influenced Mac Miller.
Yeah.
But yeah. So this was my bad ending, which isn't a bad ending. It's just, you know, a downer song before a very climactic finish, I think.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah. And then we're at your last song, my friend.
So yeah, my last one is, I think, a little more overlooked in the intensely popular Eurobeat genre, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's one of my favorites in that it has like a lot of finality and a lot of like conclusion to it, and that's "The Top" by Ken Blast.
Yeah.
It's basically the song of like, I done it, I made it, I win, like that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And it specifically is referencing, you know, cars and car culture. Crash and burn, that's what you're gonna do. I'm the master of the asphalt fight. Like, it's about racing. And that was the whole idea, is like the last act you're getting in the racing simulator, and it's, or like not even the simulator, but like maybe like the arcade little racing games, and you like kind of suck at first because those games are unpredictable, but then you like get really good and you actually win, and that's like this whole kind of progression of the last act, and then you feel accomplished on your way home.
I'll say for sure, the driving games at an arcade are always bussin'.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it. There used to be this one we used to go to that had the Mario Kart ones.
Yeah.
That were connected. That was fun as shit.
Man. Yeah, that's, and there's like so many. There's like what is it, like there's one like Canyon something, Ridge Racer. There's a lot of good just like classic kind of like 1.5 or like 2.5D like racing games that are like kind of like SNES era and onwards that are so much fun. But this is that to a T. It's like, this is the end of the road, like you made it, and that's the night. That's the night at the arcade, pretty much. So this was like the little like cherry on top for me.
Yeah. No, I feel that. And like this is exactly where I went with my last one. I started this playlist with like an intro and an ender. And so the last song I have is Plasma by Kavinsky.
Yep.
And like it's just very anthemic. It's like it's the good ending. It's like the way you feel after an excellent night out with your friends. And you know, I think it has kind of all the aesthetics that we associate with arcade and gaming culture. It definitely doubles down on the 80s aesthetic. I think this maybe has it more than any other song on this playlist.
This is the one where you drive off into the vaporwave
This
sunset.
is
It's
yeah,
like
exactly.
the ground is purple.
You can't
The
see it.
sun is
You
orange.
can't see it because it's immediately behind my camera, but that's behind my computer. Like, like, uh, but yeah, man, that was exactly like the vibe I wanted to do. Like, yeah, the drive home, the ride into the sunset or
Love it.
sunrise sometimes. Uh,
Yeah.
this was fun. This was a lot of fun, Jasper.
Hell yeah.
Fuck, we're gonna make these available so you guys can listen to these. All on Spotify. So if you have Apple Music, fuck off. Sorry, Jeff.
Get wrecked, Jeff.
Yeah, get wrecked, Jeff. Uh, did you have fun doing this, Jazz?
I did. This was a great time.
This was a
I'm
great
liking this like themed playlist
Yeah, we're gonna do this
activity.
again. We're gonna do it again with Purvis. We're probably gonna have to limit it to 10 songs. And we're gonna do a night drive, which is obviously like
Man, dude.
gonna be intense.
I already have a playlist for it. Let's
should we
go.
outlaw nights to make it hard on all of us? Like,
Night.
yeah, it's just you can't use nights. Like,
Um, I wouldn't even put that on there, to
that's
be honest.
insane. Nights
No,
is the
it's
best.
not.
I
The only part of it that's four into the night is the end where it's after the beat switch.
I
Every night fucks every
literally
day up. The
dude,
rest of it's about the daytime.
I don't care. No, it's not. It's about on your way to the night shift. Uh,
I guess.
I don't care. Anytime I have to go on. Yesterday, I had to go see a friend, and they live right up in Edgewater, so it's like
Yeah.
an 8-minute drive down Lakeshore Drive, and it's like hell yeah, Frank Ocean nights right now, like Frank Ocean.
For me, the go-to is 90210.
Yeah, oh yeah, Frank Ocean nights after dark, and then I started over. Like, do you want to do recommendations?
Let's run it.
Let's run it.
After you.
This is a recommendation heavy episode. I did not prepare a third one. We're just gonna do two. So my first one, I'm doing. This is a female rapper that got recommended to me by my girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
and it's super fitting because I've had this in my notes for a minute. It's called Katana by Princess Nokia,
Mm.
and it's dope. And it plays into the gaming vibe really heavily. Mortal Kombat obviously is referenced all over the song. It's very catchy. It's very fun. Big fan.
That's dope.
Yeah.
My first one has got to be Infinity Repeating.
Oh, you're
Which
recommending
we-
that?
Yeah, which we talked about. It's so nice. I love that song.
Okay. I'm going to recommend that's a good pick. I mean, I'm always hesitant like because there's nothing in like the ethos of what the recommendations are that forbids
Yeah.
it from being modern. There's just no reason why it can't be, but for some reason I never pick a modern song.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a well, no, I think you have. I think you
Maybe
picked
a couple
you
times.
you picked didn't you pick us not scaring the hose, but there was like another recent project that you picked something off of when it was like of the time.
Maybe. Oh, I think it was 10. I think I maybe recommended something off of 10. Like
Yeah, that
really
sounds
early.
right.
Yeah. So my next one, this has been in my notes app for a long time because
Mhm.
this person performed at the Super Bowl. I really think this is one of the most popular songs that was ever released in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Umbrella by Rihanna.
Oh yeah.
It is just a classic song. I don't know like how else to describe it.
How else do you describe it? I mean,
It's a classic.
that's that. Open and shut.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, my next one is going to be I can just get this open here. You know what? I'm doing it. We talked about this off podcast, but I've been going through and listening to The Weeknd from start to finish.
Oh, here we go.
House of Balloons, Glass Table Girls, original.
That's
off of
that's the best
original
song. That's
House
the
of
best-
Balloons.
that song, incredible. That's like one of my favorite songs ever, actually.
This is a happy house.
This- God, talk about the exact opposite. Well, talk about a bad ending. Like, do you have any idea how many bad nights ended with that song? Like,
Right.
oh my God. Well, Jasper, remember when we said we were going to make this an hour and a half?
What the fuck happened to us?
I don't know, man. At first, it was like, man, are we going to be able to do this? Are we going to be able to make this happen without Purvis? 2.5 hours. I gotta edit out like a couple minutes, but like,
I feel like it's just us arguing. It's most of it, and then Purvis is just there, like,
yeah. But now it's like we didn't even argue, and we still went out
No.
forever. Like we still
For
went
sure,
over
yeah.
by an hour.
just riffing. Yeah,
That was
10 out of
hilarious.
10.
That's probably the funniest thing is that we go over more when we don't argue, like, because there's nothing telling you to stop. Like,
Nope.
you're not violating any social mores.
Yeah,
Well, guys,
Man.
it is that time. A Belly album dropped 10 minutes ago. Good night.
nighty night. Until next week.